And hello, everybody, and welcome to the NorCal VGC Midseason Showdown here at Kin Games in Hayward, California. My name is Ryan, joined here by Simon, and we have got quite the day of competition coming up here. Ignore the floating hand in front of us. I legally cannot stop him from doing it.
Yeah, so excited to be here. Glad to be finally co-casting with my good friend Ryan here. And we do have an amazing matchup for you to start. We got our good friends Zac E and Jourdan B up on the stream for today. No way we couldn't put these two on stream first. It's going to be the matchup of a century. These are both very talented players with some even more cool teams.
Yeah, it's quite the interesting size spam setup here from Zac. We've got the Ndidi Armarouge that you're probably used to seeing, along with the Grim Snarl, the Ogerpon Wellspring, and then Iron Hands Fluttermane to kind of round that one out.
Yeah, honestly, I agree. I actually haven't seen the set on the Grim Snarl yet, but I'm thinking that there's like I would imagine there's some anti-synergy with like the Indeedee and the Armorage and the Grim Snarl, but I mean, if Zac believes in it, I take his word for it.
This is Sucker Punch Grim Snarl.
That is a choice to run with size spam, but you know what? I believe that he could probably make it work.
But hopping onto the other side here, Jourdan is running a tried and true team that he has been running within a couple tournaments. I think he won a Tommy Tuesday recently with it. He's got the Fluttermane, Iron Hands, Roaring Moon, Kanto Arcanine, Goldango, and Ogerpon Wellspring, but we'll have to see how these teams shake up as we get into game one here. Both players are just loading up as this is set to be a doozy. Round one, game one, and it starts now.
All right, we see Jourdan coming out with a Roaring Moon, the Arcanine, and on Zac's side, we get the Grimmsnarl and the Fluttermane. I think the Fluttermane's going to be putting in a lot of work against this Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon was pretty obviously going to be coming to this matchup. It's a Dark type. When you see Spy Spam, you bring your Dark types, and Roaring Moon is one of the best ones to bring.
It's a bit of an interesting lead in though, because you do have the Arcanine next to it. While the Intimidate's not really doing much, the Fluttermane's not going to be doing too much into the Arcanine as well. It's a very smart play by Jourdan to make sure that while he is going to be going that Roaring Moon route, and he has to be careful of the Fluttermane, he is smart enough to kind of bring something next to it that can really assist in making sure that it takes as minimal damage as possible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Fluttermane is definitely putting on a lot of pressure onto that Roaring Moon, having a 4 times weak Moon Blast just ready to go, but Zac is actually going to opt to swap it out for something else. The Arcanine clearly putting enough pressure on that Fluttermane.
It's going to be the Iron Hands coming out as the Roaring Moon opts to protect here, keeping it nice and safe from the Fluttermane that actually just left. Reflect coming out of the Grimmsnarl there, Prankster speed, make sure it goes nice and quick as Snarl comes out of this Arcanine. It's going to get the special attack drop on the Grimmsnarl and the Iron Hands, but not nearly as effective as if it had gotten it on that Fluttermane. That's a really, really smart swap from Zac.
Yeah, that I think Jordan's game plan here was just to make sure that the Fluttermane couldn't do as much damage as it could into that Roaring Moon, probably just like live a hit, or maybe like just a few HP bars, but now he has to deal with that Iron Hands, which still has that super effective Drain Punch, and also has a Fake Out turn. I'm not even sure what the best play would be for him. Faking out something here would be great. Faking out into the Roaring Moon is pretty free since the Roaring Moon had just protected. But maybe just to keep it safe, you might swap into something like a Fluttermane or a Goldengo.
Yeah, it's a really, really tricky situation to be in here, especially because this Arcanine is a bit more of like a protective set. It does have extreme speed and Flare Blitz, but for the most part, it's looking for those Will-O-Wisps, it's looking for those Snarls, but it's looking to get off of the field. Iron Hands will be hitting the side of
Probably to reset that Intimidate.
It does reset the Intimidate, and it does open up a Terastallization option for him as well. It's going to be the Roaring Moon going into the Terra Fairy in front of this Iron Hands. Good if you want to deal super effective damage, and great when you think about the fact that this is a... Is this a Terra Blast?
This is
as well. It is not a Terra Blast.
It's just a Tech Tailwind knockoff Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe gonna bring that attack down on that Iron Hands as we just saw, but Grimmsnarl's gonna be immune to it. But the Fairy Spirit Break going into that Roaring Moon isn't really gonna do much, considering it just Fairy Terra'd.
Yeah, it's a really smart Terra from the side of Jourdan here, just to make sure that your Roaring Moon doesn't take too much damage off the bat here. Kind of keep yourself nice and safe, as it's a bit of slow play coming from both of these trainers here. Both of them know what the other one is capable. Both of them know that they can't afford to make that one small mistake that can put you 2 steps behind. So they're just making sure to keep themselves kind of in a good position. Don't overextend. The Ferretary.
Terra Fairy.
Terra. My words don't work too good, but that's okay. We're gonna keep on moving.
Yeah.
The Terra Fairy is really, really smart there because it does keep you safe from the Grimmsnarl. It keeps Roaring Moon in a good spot. And now Roaring Moon can switch, come back later with a ton of health on its side as Ogerpon looks to replace it.
Jordan's revealing his last Pokemon to be Ogerpon. Drain Punch coming out into the Iron Hands. No Fake Out this turn. Or was that the Fake Out turn? No, yeah, no Fake Out this turn. We're just going to see just damage. And the Spirit Break coming on to the Iron Hands. Going to take a bit of chip damage. Not going to do too much. Special attack fell. Who cares? It's Iron Hands. Iron Hands doesn't need that. We're going to see a Volt Switch, though. Probably into something like that Flutter Mane. Potentially. But we can see what else we have in the back here.
I think that Spirit Break did as much in a super effective hit to Iron Hands as it did in a not very effective hit to Roaring Moon. Which
really
is
did.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's Intimidated, so I guess that's probably the power of Intimidate just going off right there.
That's the power of Assault Vest. Assault
Well,
Vest is...
Spirit Break is physical.
Spirit
so
Break is... That's the power of Hand.
That's the power of Hand.
It is a beefy
Hands
boy.
never
It is the
dies.
Flutter Mane that's going to be looking to replace that Iron Hands. Flutter Mane once again hitting the field and feeling pretty good for it, even though the Roaring Moon is teared away from being able to get hit super effectively by the Flutter Mane. Iron Hands not so lucky, and Assault Vest does matter in the Flutter Mane matchup, but it still does so much damage.
Yeah, if I had to guess, the Arcanine's probably going to come in here for that Hands. That's just my prediction, but I think that Flutter Mane just gives up so much pressure in this matchup, like specifically onto that Iron Hands, which is actually gonna be swapping out probably into that Arcanine as I suspected. But that kind of pressure on it, just like it threatens the KO with that chip. No Iron Hands is gonna be winning that matchup.
It's just such a weird position to be in because the entire time as you're breaking swipes with Roaring Moon and you're intimidating with Arcanine and you want them to hit the Iron Hands and potentially a physical attacker that's in the back, like this Ogerpon.
Oh yeah.
And Intimidate just missed both of them.
Yep.
And Ogerpon's on the field free for it now. So it's really, really good pivoting from Zac, kind of forcing these moves out of Jordan here, as it's going to be the Terastallization coming out.
Big damage on something.
Fairy, I said it
Fairy.
correctly this
Terra
time.
Fairy this time.
On our Flutter Mane, looking to do big damage with this Moonblast. I suspect it's going into the Iron Hand slot as it launches into the Arcanine that just switched in.
Yeah,
Not
doing
very
half.
effective, still does have.
That is so much damage. You cannot underestimate the power of Flutter Mane. Is that even Choice Specs? That is indeed
Yes,
the
that is
Choice
Choice
Specs.
Specs.
I saw it had Trick Room, so I was like, is that Choice Specs? Yeah, that's Choice Specs for you. Choice Specs Terra Fairy Moonblast does not mess around.
Ivy Cudgel does come out of the Ogerpon on Jordan's side, dealing a good amount of damage into that Flutter Mane as well. It is in range of being knocked out by just another hit there. And you're also, now that you have Terrid into this Fairy type, you're no longer a Ghost type. You're susceptible to these extreme speeds from Arcanine.
Absolutely.
That is something that you have to be worried about as well. I don't believe this Ogerpon is running Follow Me. It is actually. So you do have to think about maybe Follow Me into an extreme speed to kind of chip down this Flutter Mane and deal just a little bit of extra damage to it. But there's no Follow Me in sight. It's going to be Moonblast coming out of this Flutter Mane back into the Arcanine, and it's enough
gonna go out.
for the KO.
Yep,
The good
that's the
boy
KO.
has fallen.
Yeah, even with that resisted hit, it just takes out the Arcanine. Woodhammer coming into the Flutter Mane, not doing any damage, or sorry, doing all the damage, leaving it at no HP. That's what I was trying to say. Going for that KO on both sides, and we just have two Ogerpon Wellsprings just looking at each other on the field. And we get the Horn Leech coming out from Zac's side, bringing that Ogerpon to did more than half of its HP. And now Zac has a decision to make. Actually, both players have a decision to make on what they're going to bring in.
I really respect the option to go for Woodhammer instead of Ivy Cudgel there. You do have to respect the fact that Zac's Ogerpon does have Follow Me as well, so if you go for that pretty safe Ivy Cudgel, make sure you don't take any extra damage from this Woodhammer. You run the risk of Follow Me into the Water Absorb on Ogerpon and dealing no damage for that turn, and then Flutter Mane gets off scot-free. So I really like the ability to kind of pace out your opponent and go, yeah, I have to respect the fact that this Follow Me could be coming out, making sure to just go for the Woodhammer. You take a little bit of extra damage for it, but it's okay. As we have the Iron Hands on Zac's side and the Terra Fairy Roaring Moon coming back out for Jordan here. It's a spot that both kind of feel a little uncomfortable about, especially when there is a Heavy Slam that can come out of this Iron Hands. There is a Fake Out that can go into maybe the Ogerpon. Roaring Moon, just going to
Just go for that Protect. I'm going to guess that this Ogerpon's also going to be going for that Protect. Yeah. Getting a little bit of chip on the Iron Hands with the Spiky Shield, assuming that it goes for the Fake Out into the Ogerpon. And we're going to see where it goes. Does it go into the Ogerpon?
Ogerpon.
Yeah, that's a little bit of chip going down on the Iron Hands. Bring Jourdan to just a little bit more of a favorable position. But it's just, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Oh, I mean, maybe that chip will matter. But regardless, the Iron Hands is down to a little bit over half of its HP. And now, once again, we're still in that same exact spot as last turn, where we have both Ogerpons in the field. Both of them can't go for the Ivy Cudgel, otherwise they just risk doing nothing. Or even potentially just healing a Jourdan's Ogerpon.
But we did just see the Ivy Cudgel come out from Zac there that was supposedly going into the Roaring Moon. It's a smart play, especially when you have Fake Out as an option, as it's going to be Iron Hands coming in for Jourdan here. Both Ogerpons actually opting to leave the field here.
They're going to head out.
Grimmsnarl hitting the field once more for Zac here. Both Ogerpons deciding they want nothing of what's going on as the Breaking Swipe goes into Zac's
Going to be
team.
weakening that Iron Hands damage output. So even if a Heavy Slam does come out here, it's probably not going to do as much. But instead, we're going to see the critical hit Drain Punch onto the opposing Iron Hands on Jourdan's side. That's gonna matter a lot. You got a good amount of healing from that. We got it did a lot of damage to that Iron Hands.
Yeah, that's a really bad feeling crit on the turn that you get that Breaking Swipe off. You lower its attack. You're really looking to kind of stunt this Iron Hands and make sure to kind of lower its damage as much as possible, and then it just kind of crits through it anyway.
Who cares? Who cares about a -1 when your Iron Hands can just crit?
Who cares about any stat changes when you could just crit? It's still just such a tricky position to be in, especially with that crit. It kind of makes you a little bit less safe on Jourdan's side. Your Iron Hands is probably one hit away from getting knocked out. Even maybe Spirit Break is within hands for it, but it's going to be the Fake Out coming out from it, hitting the Grimmsnarl, making sure that it can't move this turn, as Breaking Swipe will go out once more from Roaring Moon.
And we're going to get that to -2. -2 attack. It's going to be very weak. Grimmsnarl flinching, and then we're going to see the Volt Switch, getting those stat drops off of the field.
That did almost no damage.
That did basically nothing. Man, I know the Iron Hands is not a special attacker, because Volt Switch is a special attack, but I'm honestly disappointed. Iron Hands, how could you do this to me?
It's a bit of a weird kind of choice to go into the Volt Switch there. I actually really like what he's going for, knowing that, we're just going to be breaking, swiping a whole ton. You're at -2. You kind of just need to get out of there, reset the -2 that you had on your attack. It's now back to being perfectly fine, and you've reset your Fake Out pressure as well. When it comes back in, you have the ability to just click Fake Out. You're nice and healthy. It's actually a pretty nuanced choice to go for that Volt.
I will say, at this point, Zac can go for the Ivy Cudgel pretty safely, but if there's any kind of swaps, then he's just going to be healing the opponent's Ogerpon, but we don't see any swaps on Jourdan's side at all. We just see the Tailwind coming out, and the Reflect from the Grimmsnarl. We see the Tailwind making the Iron Hands a bit faster, and it's going to do a lot of damage to that Grimmsnarl. We're going to see the Horn Leech come out, respecting the swap, as I was mentioning, but we're going to see that Iron Hands go down to that Horn Leech, and it's just going to KO, and we're going to get some healing off of that.
Yeah, it's a really kind of weird spot to be in where you get the Tailwind off, but it's so late into the game that now you've got a under half health Ogerpon and a Roaring Moon to kind of take advantage of that Tailwind with now, and it's about how much can you actually get out of those turns of Tailwind? How much can you actually get out in this late game situation here? I actually do kind of like his odds, though.
I do, too.
You have the Grimmsnarl that's pretty low. You can just double protect again when the hands comes back in. Ogerpon is very healthy, and those Horn Leeches have been very lethal, so that's kind of a tricky situation to kind of dance around, but it's certainly far from unwinnable.
Definitely, but something to consider is that Zac has Light Screen on it. Sorry, Reflect on his side, so those Horn Leeches are going to do so much less damage. But we do see that Spiky Shield come out, getting rid of one of those turns of Tailwind. We're actually going to see a Spiky Shield from both sides, so we're probably going to see maybe a Breaking Swipe from the... Oh, you see the Sucker Punch failing, probably going into that Ogerpon slot, but Breaking Swipe is going to get protected onto that Ogerpon. I'm pretty sure Zac was confident that Jourdan was going to try and lower the attack of the Ogerpon, but this has kind of just become a very bit of a nothing turn, other than Roaring Moon taking some chip.
I would go so far as to say that was a pretty smart move from both players there.
Oh, absolutely.
I really like what Jourdan was going for there. He's going for that breaking swipe. You really need to kind of bide your time, get the -1s on that Ogerpon while protecting your own Ogerpon, give it a free turn to kind of work within that space of a -1, -2 situation. It was just really well read by Zac. He goes for the spiky shield, knows breaking swipe's not going to do anything to his Grimmsnarls, keeps kind of nice and safe as he does so. It is a nothing turn, but I think it was really good to kind of get into the mind space of your opponent because it shows that both of these trainers know clearly what the other one is going for.
Yes. I will say that, we see the breaking swipe coming out finally into that Ogerpon, getting the -1 drop. We do see a little bit of a wood hammer coming out from the Ogerpon once again, respecting the follow me move, and it seems like neither of the players have decided to go for a follow me this time. Like, every time the Ogerpon's on the field, and they have not clicked follow me once. We see the critical hit onto the Ogerpon, although I don't think it really matters in this situation too much. It might because of the -1.
It doesn't matter, but that is the second time that Breaking Swipe has -1 to Pokemon, only for that Pokemon to immediately come back and crit on the next turn, so the Breaking Swipe kind of didn't matter.
That's so sad.
It's a situation where I think as that turn ends, you've kind of lost.
Yeah.
This Roaring Moon is in a position to kind of like exist still, but I don't know how much it's going to be able to do against the Iron Hands and the Ogerpon at the same time, especially because now Follow Me is kind of a guaranteed keep my Iron Hands safe while it heavy slams your Roaring Moon. So it's a tough position to be in, but it's a really, really good kind of opportunity to figure out what exactly is Zac's headspace at the moment. Where does he want to be going with these moves? What's his, priority? And I think you've learned a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the fake out and the Horn Leech was definitely the play that we were going to see regardless of what happened. I think that Jourdan might have to think about ways he can adjust in this next game. Although we could also consider that Roaring Moon was faster than the Ogerpon and the Iron Hands. So therefore he could have tried to get a breaking swipe off, mitigate some more of that damage. But I don't think Roaring Moon can really get that unless he gets 2 crits, potentially, but it's too late. Oh, actually, that Roaring Moon was slower. I was thinking about with the booster speed.
Well, Tailwind had worn off the previous turn as well, so the speed tiers kind of get remixed there. I think that's probably why you let the you kind of let that fake out into that Horn Leech happen, is because, hey, it's my last turn of Tailwind. If I'm going to make it happen, I'm going to make it happen now. It's just a tough spot to be in when the switches are just so perfectly called on the other side.
Absolutely. I will say, I think that it was really smart doing the Terra Fairy on the Roaring Moon, because basically what happened was, once he saw that there was no Indeedee or Armourouge on the other side, he had no risk at like tearing out of that Dark type. And Fairy types would do really well or he doesn't really have much to hit Fairy on the side of Jourdan.
Yeah, this is kind of a tough matchup for Roaring Moon to just exist in general. I think for the most part, you want to be able to get rid of the Flutter Mane so your Roaring Moon has space to move and not necessarily commit that Terra first.
Yeah.
Because the moment you commit the Terra, you see exactly what just happened, where Iron Hands is just going to come in and kind of dance around the Fairy type to keep them nice and safe.
Yeah.
And then Iron Hands is just going to eventually get a heavy slam off onto that Roaring Moon, and everything is going to feel bad.
Exactly.
I think that's what he was going for in that last turn, letting the fake out come through, because maybe there's a chance that he does just go for heavy slam. He knows heavy slam would end the game, so maybe just go for the heavy slam, catch him off with a breaking swipe, have something of that effect happen. The more I think about that last turn, the more I actually really, really like what Ragna and Jourdan was going for.
He kind of just had to bank on his on his opponent to get a little bit too greedy, but unfortunately, that's just not how Zac plays. Apparently,
Zac is not a greedy individual. He is cold and calculated, and it showed in that game.
Yeah, absolutely did. Like, despite being faced up with that Roaring Moon on the lead, he was able to figure it out. Like, just figure out the matchup, and also the Terra Fairy, he was able to play around it. Like, I honestly just excellently played. Even the Grimmsnarl screens absolutely mattered that round a lot. There was so much damage coming out from the side of Jourdan that if those screens weren't up, it might have been a completely different game. But we're getting right into game 2 now. We're going to see Jourdan and Zac's adjustments. Actually, probably more Jordan's adjustments, but we'll see what we see.
Be the Iron Hands and Ogerpon on the side of Jourdan, responded by Ogerpon Fluttermane on the side of Zac. A little bit of mix-up from both players here. Fluttermane, the only common denominator, as both Ogerpons hit in the field early, and the Iron Hands on the side of Jourdan. Roaring Moon is in the back or on the bench, only time will tell.
We'll see. And honestly, just based off what we just saw from the backs of Zac's Pokemon, I'm really hoping for Jordan's sake there's a Roaring Moon behind there. Or maybe even a Golden Go, because that's also really good in the side stand matchup. But on the field right now, I think Ogerpon can easily just... I feel like Follow Me is just a great move here. And but just to keep the Iron Hands safe from any kind of Moon Blast without having to commit any kind of Terra. But odds are we're gonna see Protect from the side of Zac, just to get that fake out of the way.
It's going to be Fluttermane switching out for the Indeedee. A new player has entered the battlefield, one that we did not get to see last game, as the Psychic Terrain will be set here. No fake out, no priority.
Who cares about a fake out when you got the Psychic Terrain up? But we're going to see a Terra, early Terra again, once again from... Ooh.
This is going to be going on to the Iron Hands. It's going to be that Terra Water coming out of this Iron Hands, making sure that any IV Cudgels aren't going to be quite as effective, but Horn Leech is going to be nice and good into it, as it's the Wood Hammer coming out of the Ogerpon, going into Zac's Ogerpon and dealing a massive amount of damage. IV Cudgel going into the Iron Hands. The Terra Water is good. It's a good call as it deals just a little bit under a fifth, as Heavy Slam goes into the Indeedee. It was a great call to get that Fluttermane out of there, as that was a brilliantly sculpted move from Jourdan. A good response from Zac, making sure he keeps his Fluttermane safe, but that is a ton of damage on his board, and that is tough to deal with.
Absolutely. And the fake out didn't even come out this turn. Like he knew. Like it's almost like the priorities of faking out a Pokemon did not matter. He just wanted to get the KO on that Fluttermane. If he could get that early KO, he doesn't even need to worry about what's up next. But now Jourdan has to decide, is Indeedee just here, or is there an Armor Rouge in the back? And honestly, the Terra Water here is also really smart, because you can also... You're not going to be taking the super effective from that Fluttermane anymore, but you will have those Horn Leeches that are going to be good.
And there is the Roaring Moon. Iron Hands taking a seat on the benches. Roaring Moon will be hitting the field. The booster energy activating, making its speed faster than the average bear. Follow Me coming out of the Indeedee, making sure that the Ogerpon is kept nice and safe here, but it is going to be the IV Cudgel going into it anyway. The IV Cudgel is enough to take out that Indeedee. It will leave the field and not to be seen again, as it's going to be the Horn Leech coming out from Ogerpon. The switch onto that Roaring Moon from the Iron Hands, keeping it nice and safe, as you understood the adjustment was coming. Horn Leech is going to come out. It would have been super effective into the Iron Hands,
but now it's not very effective into that Roaring Moon.
And it takes it beautifully.
Absolutely. And honestly, the fact that that swap feels very obvious, but I mean, you don't know what's at the back. So you should just assume that you're going to hit something with big damage. Well, we're going to see the Fluttermane come back out from Zac's side. I was thinking maybe the Armor Rouge would come back out, but it's not. It's time, considering Roaring Moon has just hit the field. No Terra available, though, so we can just hit that thing for big damage.
The Roaring Moon is certainly threatened here. You do have the ability to switch into this Iron Hands relatively freely now. You could always switch into the Iron Hands, take a Moonblast a lot better than you would have previously. You do have to worry about the Ogerpon Horn Leeching into that slot as well, in dealing a huge amount of damage if it calls it correctly. But at that point, your own Ogerpon, which has proven to be a little bit faster, can just take care of the other one at the same time.
Get rid of it.
So it's a bit of a power move from Jourdan here. It kind of depends on where he wants his switches and what he wants to kind of... If he wants his foot on the gas, or if he thinks that these swaps are going to be coming.
But we're going to see the swap coming out from Zac. We're going to see Armor Rouge hit the field. Definitely in a little bit of a precarious position with that Roaring Moon. But we're going to see a Terra once again coming out on the Fluttermane. Going to that Terra Fairy, going to be doing some big damage to something, hopefully. That Roaring Moon could protect and just mitigate all that damage by taking no damage, and then IV Cudgel could just KO. But we're going to see the Spiky Shield instead. And Roaring Moon seems to be a sitting duck, but we're going to see the Tailwind come out. Oh, this is going to be a bit difficult, because... Yeah, no, Zac is going to be completely outsped up because there's no more Indeedee. The only Trick Room he has is on Fluttermane, and Fluttermane is just locked into Dazzling Gleam.
Armarouge does have Trick Room. It is an option here, but you've lost your ability to kind of give it the space to click Trick Room, especially when you're staring down a tailwinded Ogerpon.
Exactly. You're going to take that huge Ivy Cudgel, and you can't even Terra out of it. Is it Terra Grass? No, it's Terra Psychic.
It's Terra Psychic. So the Roaring Moon does go down to that Dazzling Gleam. I think you kind of trade just the Tailwind for your Roaring Moon's life, and you're maybe fine with that at the moment, as you kind of want to let this Iron Hands and this Ogerpon take the rest of your game forward. Iron Hands is Terra Water, which didn't look so good in front of the Ogerpon. It worked really well when you got that Ivy Cudgel call, but now that you're staring down an Armarouge and a Fluttermane, it looks fantastic.
It looks absolutely great. There's no reason why you wouldn't want to be Terra Water in this situation specifically. But now I'm kind of curious. Do you think that Zac will swap out the Armarouge? Clearly, this is the obvious play to try and Ivy Cudgel that the Armarouge, perhaps. But if he just swaps out into well, here we do. We see it. We see the Ogerpon come in, and we might just see some healing on the side of Zac. But
Ogerpon will hit the feeling as Ivy Cudgel comes in. Water Absorb is going to give it a little bit of health back, as Dazzling Gleam will be coming out from this Fluttermane. It is still faster than the Iron Hands, even with Tailwind, and it's a critical hit onto the Ogerpon. It's going to be knocking out that Ogerpon as Iron Hands is dropped down to just under half HP, but it's a Heavy Slam coming back. It's enough for the one-hit knockout. Fluttermane's up, Fluttermane's down.
That's it. The Roaring Moon is still a factor in this game, right?
Roaring Moon feels fantastic here. You have just the Armarouge and the Ogerpon. You've got this is actually such a fantastic position for Roaring Moon, but it's actually going to be the Arcanine coming back out. Make sure you get the Intimidate down onto the Ogerpon. There's no more switches available on Zac's side, so you can't get rid of the -1s this time.
Oh, do you think he might be going for a Will-O-Wisp onto the Ogerpon? That might be an interesting play. Trying to nerf the damage from the Ogerpon even more. It's going to be stuck on the field with -1, though, so that might even just be enough.
I think you maybe let the -1 be what it is. You don't necessarily need to go for Will-O-Wisps, as you have maybe a turn left on this Psychic Terrain. Extreme Speed is going to become an option, and it's going to become an option quickly. But you do have to be a little bit worried about getting Ivy Cudgeled by this Ogerpon into that Arcanine. You don't have your own Ogerpon to switch into like we had seen Zac do earlier, so it is much more precarious of a situation to be in, but Roaring Moon is still in the back. It's going to be a Snarl coming out from this Arcanine, dealing a little bit of chip damage to both the Ogerpon and the Armarouge, but more importantly, it's going to drop that Armarouge's special attack as its Wild Charge goes coming out of Iron Hands here, dealing enough to that Ogerpon, making sure to get the knockout. Tailwind pays dividends.
Absolutely. The Ogerpon is not going to be able to do as much. Well, this Armarouge isn't going to be able to do as much, pardon me. But it does get the KO on the Iron Hands, despite being -1. I mean, the Iron Hands was already pretty low, but with the Salt Vest and being -1, I would expect that to maybe even take it. It's not even super effective anymore. But that Psychic Terrain is going to be off the field, and Extreme Speed does become an option. But
yeah, I had forgotten that the Ogerpon, or the Roaring Moon, had fell earlier when the Dazzling Gleam came out, so I thought it was still in the back. But you do have Snarls coming out of this Arcanine. It's just to protect from the Armarouge, making sure it stays nice and safe, as it's a bit of mind games. Tailwind does peter out. I think that's a good kind of use of your time here, as you're most likely going to be outsped by anything but the Extreme Speed coming out, as it's a Snarl one more time. Does a little bit more damage, but more importantly, lowers the attack a little bit more, the special attack rather, as Expanding Force comes out one more time, and
it still does big damage. It wasn't even a crit. It still does huge damage. We might not be able to see the KO here, but I think Zac might have enough in the tank to finish it off, barring a crit. We see the Expanding Force come out onto Jourdan's Arcanine. Will it be enough? And no! Just barely not enough. Jourdan almost took it to a Game 3, but Zac's Armarouge and adjustments were enough to bring it home.
Yeah, that was a much tighter game than we had seen in the first one. That was such a perfect chess match that had come out going into the Arcanine, whether or not you're snarling, you're extreme speeding, wearing out the Tailwind. That was down to the wire, as down to the wire gets.
I will say, I've talked to Jourdan a couple times about Side Spam, his Side Spam matchup. The snarl on the Arcanine is by far like one of his biggest answers into Psy spam. Like, I would call myself the resident Psy spammer of the casting crew, and we've definitely talked about this matchup. And I think he had the right tools for the job, but I think Zach was just able to like just play like just a little bit better.
It was the
Still very tight.
It was the minute details, knowing that Dazzling Gleam is a little bit safer. You get the knockout on the Roaring Moon and potentially chip onto the Ogre Pond, so you force it into that spiky shield. It's small details like that that kind of lead you to the end game that they had found themselves in. Wonderfully played by both trainers, without a doubt.
Absolutely. But we're going to take a short break here as we go into round 2. Be sure to stick around. And yeah,
We'll be back.
we'll be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Kin Games Premier Challenge for NorCal VGC. My name is Simon. This is my new co-caster, Aaron.
What's up?
I just realized our nameplates are swapped, but that is completely fine. Oh, wait, no, they're not.
No,
We're
they're
good. But we have a really interesting match. We have 2 senior players playing against each other today.
Yeah, both these seniors are NorCal regional champions. We have Bolt Beam Studios, aka Alexander R, as our previous Fresno champion, and then we also have Ori, who has recently won this season's Sacramento regionals in the seniors division.
Yeah, but on both sides, we have some interesting Pokemon. On the side of Alexander, we got a Gastrodon, which isn't something we typically see, which is, I mean, it's very good into Urshifu and any other water types that attack into it. Specifically, this Ogre Pond the Ogre Pond on Ori's side will have some difficulties with that. We also see the Roaring Moon, the Flutter Mane, Iron Hands, the Landorus, the Chien-Pao, all very typical subjects that we see.
Yeah, on Ori's side, we have a unique pick in the Farigiraf here. Farigiraf is commonly used as a supportive Pokemon, often has Trick Room. As we do see it on this side here, has it's more offensive with more moves that do damage, but
Yeah, we have the Dazzling Gleam, Psychic, very good moves to have on your Farigiraf. And also just stopping priority will be really good, specifically for the Iron Hands fake out. Perhaps you can actually fake out your own opponent by swapping it in and making that fake out stop. But anyways, it looks like we're about to get into our game 1 of this set. We're going to see what they're going to be leading, and let's take a look. And round 2 of the Kin Games local Bolt Beam Studios, otherwise known as Alexander, and we have Ori. And on the side of Alexander, we see a Chien-Pao and a Roaring Moon. Very offensive start with a Chien-Pao and an Amoonguss on Ori's side, potentially trying to get some of these things to go to take a nap.
yeah, I'm just wondering with Ori's side, if you just want more of a defensive pivot if he wants to put Pokemon to sleep. But on the side of Alexander, we do see a very more offensive side here. His Roaring Moon does have the Terra type of poison, so it doesn't look that threatening to the Amoonguss right now. But with the Chien-Pao, it does have the Ice type attacks to be able to threaten super effective damage onto Amoonguss.
Yeah, both of the Chien-Paos on both sides are threatening big damage onto each other, onto the partner Pokemon. And also, do either of them have Sacred Sword? It does not look. Oh no, on Alex's side we do have Sacred Sword. And we actually, on both sides, we have Sacred Sword, so they're both threatening chaos on each other. We're just going to see a Protect from Ori's side. And what are we going to see? We're also going to see a Protect on Alexander's side. So we actually do learn something here. We learned that Ori's... we kind of learned the speed order here. We learned that Ori's Chien-Pao is faster, but now not anymore, but because of that Tailwind. But the Protect and Tailwind, a pretty safe move here, just making sure that you outspeed your opponent. Ori not being able to match that is going to be a little bit of a problem.
You do see the habits of regional champions being able to try to scout their opponents before trying to make any big moves. That's generally what the Protects are for. On the side of Alexander, he did manage to get that Tailwind off. He took a risk in hoping that the Chien-Pao didn't target that.
Yeah, we're gonna see the Breaking Swipe coming out, critting the Chien-Pao. That's gonna be a lot of damage, but the more important part of this is going to be the attack drop. And we're gonna see a little bit of a Rocky Helmet chip, but not necessarily being too big. We're gonna see the Icicle Crash coming out and just KOing that Amoonguss. just being faster in this situation made it able to take so much more, do so much more damage, so much more quick. Not even worried about the Spore, but we're gonna see another one-hit KO from Chien-Pao. Chien-Pao's just taking all of the KOs.
Yeah, Chien-Pao's ability, Swords of Ruin, definitely helps out with this.
Absolutely.
Along with a gigantuous attack stat. You definitely want to be wary of Chien-Pao, even with these attack drops. We got that breaking swipe that lowered attack, but still managed to take it down from like 80% HP.
Exactly, and we're gonna see that attack stat is gonna go even further down with an Intimidate coming out from Alex's Landorus, Ori coming out with a Tornadus, probably trying to match that Tailwind, which is actually gonna stagger it. Which will, once the Tailwind on Alex's side runs out, he'll be in a way better position than Ori will be in a way better position than Alex, rather. And Alexander. We see the Sucker Punch coming into that Chien-Pao, but it's not going to take the KO. And we're going to see another Sucker Punch come out, but it's going to fail. What is the...
It was probably trying to just Sucker Punch into the other Chien-Pao.
Oh, it's going to be a Sucker Punch into a Sucker Punch.
Yeah, I'm wondering kind of Alex's choices here. He could have went for kind of a always getting a super effective damage onto that Tornadus, as we don't see a protect on the Tornadus on Ori's side.
Yeah, the Tornadus is just going to go match that Tailwind, but we're going to see the Ogerpon as the last Mon from Ori's side. Potentially just to do some damage with this Bleakwind Storm, and hope that the Ogerpon can outspeed and take some KOs here. Even if not, Alexander's Tailwind is going to be ending soon. I believe he still has 2 turns left, if I remember correctly, and they're just going to be out. That'll allow Ori to outspeed the other side, but we're going to see Landorus swap out here, resetting that Intimidate. And what's this last Mon? And we get to see the Iron Hands with the Fake Out pressure coming out on, and we're going to see the Ice crash onto the Ogerpon, not doing enough to KO it. The Bleakwind Storm will be breaking that Focus Sash, very importantly, on that Chien-Pao, and we're going to see Ivy Cudgel just take the KO.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Ori's Ogerpon, is it like one of those bulky attack variants, or is it one of those like max speed, max attack? Because there's several different ways you can run Ogerpon. Most popular as of now is to run that like, put a minimal attack investment, but have it very bulky.
Yeah, the bulk is definitely paying off here, being able to take a critical KO, but we're going to see the Landorus Intimidate that Ogerpon, making it a little bit easier to deal with, but I doubt that it's really going to... I mean, it's going to make a big difference, but we're just going to see how big of a difference here. We'll allow the Landorus or even the Iron Hands to survive. But we're just going to see the Terror coming out here from the Ogerpon Wellspring mask, going to be powering up that special defense and powering up the water-type moves, specifically Ivy Cudgel on this side.
In this context here, we want to see the speed stats of these Pokemon here. It looks like depending on how the Landorus and Ogerpon were raised, it may, determine the outcome of the game. It looks like at this moment, Ogerpon is faster than our Landorus here.
Yes, but that's also because of the Tailwind. The Tailwind did peter on Alexander's side. And we're just going to go for the Rain Dance, boost up that Ivy Cudgel even more. Even despite the Intimidate, we're going to try and get as much damage onto whatever is going to be hit here. And it's going to be that Landorus. The Landorus is... I don't know if it's going to be able to take this attack, and it barely lives. That Intimidate mattering a ton.
Definitely. I mean, but then we do see that Ogerpon surviving with that 1 HP left.
Yeah, and the Torn goes down, getting rid of Ori's own Tailwind control. It's just going to be Ogerpon against the world, and I'm not sure if it can really do that against an Iron Hands.
Well, I mean, you try to always play with 2 your outs here, so we do see the Spiky Shield. If Landorus does use something like a contact move, it will faint, but then we do see that their Landorus is actually...
It is actually Choice Scarf locked into the
Rock Slide.
Rock Slide,
Yeah.
which is not a contact move. But we're going to see a little bit of chip from the Iron Hands. I think if Ori wants to bring this back, he has to rely on a lot of RNG. We're going to have to probably hope for a crit on the... or even just a miss on the Rock Slide, but that did not, unfortunately, happen for Ori. But Alexander's going to be taking game 1 of this set with 2 of his Pokemon still on the field. Now the question is, how are we gonna see any adjustments from either of these or Or what kind of adjustments do you think we could see from either of them?
I mean, in this previous game, we did see Alexander to become more aggressive. Out of the two, we saw Ori lead with Qian Pao and Amoonguss. Instead of like going for a spore or something like that, it decided to just protect both. I'm assuming Ori was just trying to scout Alexander's habits, but Alexander did punish that with a tailwind of his own, being able to consistently outpace Ori right after that. It was sort of a kind of a domino effect there.
Absolutely, and also going into game two, Alexander knows that his Qian is actually slower than Ori's, so that's gonna be something to definitely keep in mind. Definitely gonna need that tailwind if we're gonna try and outspeed the other side of the field here. So we're just gonna see how this is going to affect their decisions on what they bring.
Yeah, definitely.
Although I do think they did bring the right Pokemon to the battle.
Yeah,
I would like
think
to
so
see the
too.
adjustment of potentially pardon me, but potentially a Gastrodon coming out here. It could give some good defensive pivots. Being 4 times weak to the water type moves is going to be a difficult issue, but I think it could Terra away and get rid of those weaknesses. What is the Terra on this by chance?
The Terra on the
Gastrodon is Dragon.
Yeah.
So it's going to be resisting those attacks. So it's going to be a really interesting idea to maybe even just try and commit that, make it just have it just be annoying with the ice beams, the earth powers, and just staying on the field with recover.
I do want to talk more about this Gastrodon, though. In this meta, we do see that Tornadus or Shifu Rapid Strike is a very, very popular archetype, and
It absolutely is.
there's not a lot that can take it down. But with the Gastrodon, you have this like ability to just take all the water type attacks. So we're moving on to game 2 now.
Yep, and we're going to see Alex make an adjustment with the Iron Hands and the Qian Pao. And we're going to see another adjustment from Ori, trying to probably match that tailwind that had made him get outpaced with a Torn and a Chi-Yu on this side.
Yeah, I do.
Sorry, not Chi-Yu, Qian Pao.
Qian Pao. I do think Ori was trying to make that more offensive pivot. He did go for the more defensive stance last game, but now he saw the power of Tailwind hyper offense, and he wants to kind of match that. On Alex's side, I'm pretty sure he was trying to read into that and has brought in his own support in fake out with Iron Hands, but Iron Hands can also deal large amounts of damage with its offensive move, I believe it's running Wild Charge.
Yeah,
Wild
Wild Charge.
So
But-
we do see the Tornadus use Tailwind.
Yeah, and the fake out does go into that Qian Pao, not going into the Torn because it is indeed the Covert Cloak. Iso Crash is going to come out here and take the one-hit KO on the Torn.
Yeah, Alexander for these 2 games came out with the more offensive lead, and we see that in turn 1 he manages to get a KO, just like that. I mean, are we gonna see Ori retaliate here? He did get the tailwind up, but what
Does he have the offense in the back to back it up?
exactly? Right?
And it kind of looks like he kind of does, based off what we're seeing right here. We have the Farigiraf, the Ogrepon in the back. Honestly, the Farigiraf seems a little bit like it would have been great to bring the Farigiraf out there to stop the fake out, but it wouldn't do anything against the Icicle Crash. We wouldn't get the tailwind up if he had swapped it out. But regardless, the speed is definitely in Ori's hands. The question is, does he have enough in the tank to capitalize it on and take these big KOs that are so important? We're gonna see the Qian Pao protect. For its focus sash is also broken from the fake out, and we see it protect also from the other Qian Pao on the field. And we're gonna see a Psychic go out into the Iron Hands. Gonna do some big damage because of that Assault Vest. It's gonna take very minimal damage. The Heavy Slam is gonna go into the Qian Pao. Probably worried about the Terra Ghost not going for a straight Drain Punch. So
Yeah.
Heavy Slam is definitely the safer option here, just to make sure that you get at least some damage off.
I mean, Heavy Slam is still super effective damage. It probably will bring it down to its sash. It's like no reason to not go with Heavy Slam into that slot.
Yeah, the only reason potentially being is just to get a little bit of more healing. But regardless, I think that it's.
I mean,
gonna-
yeah.
yeah,
The least amount of risk would be to Heavy Slam. We do see Alexander switch out into his Landorus, lowering the attack stat of the Ori's Qian Pao here.
yeah, that's the one that's gonna matter. Although it is, regardless of being intimidated, it's still under the threat of a ice spinner. But we're gonna see the terastallization coming out onto that Iron Hands. It's gonna be the Terra Water. Water making sure that it is neutral to the Dazzling Gleams and the Psychics that would be coming out from that Farigiraf on Ori's side. We're just gonna see a Sacred Sword chipping that damage. Wow, this Iron Hands just won't get KO no matter what happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they say Iron Hand is literally the best Pokemon in this format. It's
Exactly.
just so tanky with that assault.
So we're gonna see the critical hit Heavy Slam. That critical hit Heavy Slam. I'm not sure if the crit mattered at all because Chien-Pao's very light, and it's also a weak move, or it's weak to it, but.
We do see the Ogerpon coming in on Ori's side of the field. Ogerpon does have a more offensive presence than the Farigiraf here, and they still do have the Tailwind up, so we should be able to see some damage.
This is an interesting move on Ori's side. It looks like he's going to be clicking the Trick Room. Despite being in Tailwind, since his Tailwind's ending, he's going to have the speed control somehow. But we're going to see that Iron Hand swap out. If only Alexander knew it was about to happen, he would probably want to keep that Pokemon in. But we're going to see the Roaring Moon come out, revealing Alexander's last Pokemon being that Speed Booster Roaring Moon.
Yeah, Roaring Moon is such a good Pokemon in this format right now. With the Dragon typing, it really just resists so many core typing. But we do see that Ogerpon using the Ivy Pudgewell Water type into the Landorus, getting that one-hit KO.
Yeah, but despite that was the one that was intimidated, right? The Ogerpon was intimidated, so even though the Intimidate went off, it was still able to get that easy knockout. Tailwind peters out, and we are in the room. We are in the room of tricks.
Yeah, we did see that Roaring Moon with its booster energy, and that was in speed, so we will see that a Roaring Moon go last if it decides to click an attacking move.
This is a tricky game. I think that Farigiraf clicking Trick Room has definitely put Ori in a much better position. But the thing is, Iron Hands definitely outspeeds that Ogerpon. Unless his Ogerpon is minimum speed, I don't think it even has a chance. But we're going to see the Terra come out into what? We're going to see the Farigiraf. What is this Terra on the Farigiraf? It's going to be Fairy, getting some more, probably getting some more power on that Dazzling Gleam.
It definitely wants more power on that Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we can KO that.
Yeah, with the being 4x weakness to Roaring Moon being 4x weak to Fairy types, it's going to do that one-hit KO and do a little extra damage to...
Oh, even the crit. I don't know if the crit mattered on that 4 times effective Dazzling Gleam, but this definitely puts... Oh, the Drain Punch going into the not very effective Fairy type. This has really put Alexander on the back foot. I think we might be going to a game 3.
We definitely will be going into
with that
game 3.
Horn Leech. We definitely will be going to that game 3. Sorry for interrupting you there. But the Iron Hands goes down. That is the one problem with Terra Water Iron Hands. It just gets eaten up alive by Horn Leech. But we're going to see Ori take the game 2. Oh, wait, we still have one more Pokemon. I completely forgot about Chien-Pao. But honestly, I don't think Chien-Pao really has much it can do here. It can go for the Sucker Punch to try and get those priority moves off.
It won't get the Sucker Punch because of Armor Tail.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot. Whenever I play against Farigiraf, I always forget about its special ability. But we're just going to see the Protect try to stall out this Trick Room. Dazzling Gleam comes out into that Protect. Horn Leech probably also coming out, or even the Ivy Cudgel coming out. Let's see.
They did collect
Horn Leech. Yeah. And we're just going to see... This just gives a little bit more time for Alexander to think about the adjustments he might want to make into the game 3.
We do see that Dazzling Gleam go off. It has worked wonders for Ori. And then we do see that Horn Leech in Trick Room. Now we are going to a game 3.
Now we are going to a game 3. Even if a match does seem like it is lost, you do want to play it all the way out. Because it will give you either more information on what your opponent likes or likes to use, or like what your opponent might, or maybe some defensive calcs, or it just gives you more time to think.
I really did like the adjustments that Ori made. He went for that hyper offense in the beginning, but he made sure to have a different mode in the back with that Farigiraf, and he decided to definitely save his Terra there, which was definitely like, it was just a good idea to save the Terra. Like, he kept it, and then when we saw that Roaring Moon come in, that's when he knew to kind of like press on the gas with his Farigiraf here.
Absolutely. The Roaring Moon swap in was a little bit of a blunder. But to be fair, you would not even know that he would be even thinking about clicking Trick Room because you're in Tailwind. There's no reason that you would click Trick Room.
Well, his tailwind was
It was about to
ending,
peter
yeah.
out, but it's definitely a hard call to make that they would be going for the Trick Room because you do have a lot of things that are faster, especially that Iron Hands. You're not going to be clicking Trick Room in front of Iron Hands. That just makes it faster than your entire team. But who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew that would be the game winning play that we would have to see from Ori. Now the question is, how are we going to see Alexander adjust to this, and how are we going to see both of them adjust? Honestly, I think they brought.
I mean, Alexander definitely came out with a more aggressive lead. He was getting early KOs, but like we saw Ori, take his time. Tortoise always wins the race
Yeah.
type of situation. Ori's positioning was really good. He did have that tailwind that gave him more offensive pressure.
He had the speed control the entire time.
Exactly.
Not to
the
mention
entire
that.
time. So now we're moving into our game 3.
Yeah, let's see what kind of adjustments we see from both of these competitors.
I kind of do want to see that Amoonguss come out again, just because Amoonguss just has so much power in redirection and sleep. So I'm just wondering what would happen, but we don't see that Amoonguss. We do see the Ogre Pawn here.
Yeah, we see the Ogre Pawn with the Qian Pao. Honestly, a very offensive lead from both of them. Both of them having the Qian Pao out, like basically making sure that they are going to have big damage coming out no matter what. Although I will mention that Alexander has the potential for the speed control here. He has the Tailwind, but
He does have the Tailwind.
Ori does not have that kind of speed control.
Yeah. Additionally, Alex can do what was that move? The
Breaking Swipe?
Yeah, Breaking Swipe to lower the attacks on Ori's side, because both Ori's Pokemon are physical attackers right now.
Exactly. That is definitely an option, and if we remember, although something to consider is that we did see Ori's Qian Pao moving first in Game 1, so we do know that is faster. We're going to see Alexander's Qian Pao swap out, and we're actually going to see the Intimidate from the Landorus come out, intimidating both of these physical attackers. So you don't even necessarily need to click that Breaking Swipe if you don't want to.
I mean, you click the Breaking Swipe, it just lowers the effectiveness of the Qian Pao even more.
Exactly, but we're gonna see that Terra Poison coming out from the Roaring Moon, trying to not get hit by a super effective ice attack. And yeah, you're right. The Breaking Swipe is just gonna get it even lower.
Yeah, because you want Breaking Swipe to attack so that Ogre Pawn does even less damage too.
That's true. Honestly, I think that's definitely one of the better moves that you could have went to. Like, that doesn't even do half.
Yeah, exactly. We did see the Qian Pao even with the Beads of Swords of Ruin.
The Sword of Ruin, yes.
So I mean, like that Roaring Moon just provides a lot of offensive pressure. I mean, it did have the defensive Terra there to survive.
Yeah.
So I mean, are we going to see something like a Tailwind at this point right now? We do see that Roaring Moon, because of its booster energy, has the speed control right now. We do see the Ogre Pawn switch out. I'm assuming to reset its attack stat, and then now we see the Tornadus come in. This Tornadus will be able to provide support for the next turn. We see Ori use Protect, just kind of scout out what other moves, and just make sure to keep his Qian Pao on the field.
Yeah, I think Alexander might have predicted a bit of a more passive turn from Ori, going for that Tailwind, taking advantage of that speed control that he has. And what was that move that just came out?
U-turn. It was
U-turn?
Yeah. So we do see that Landorus with the Choice Scarf. It's going to be one of the faster Pokemon on the field. So that Choice Scarf Landorus will be able to move first. Though Alexander did hard switch out his Landorus for...
Let's see what it is. Is that
Iron Hands? Yeah. I mean, Iron Hands is such a great Pokemon. It just is such a good defensive pivot here. We do see Ori's MVP of last game, the Fergraf, come in.
Yeah, honestly, he has two modes of speed control that he could go for in this situation. It also blocks the... Oh, there was a critical hit on the Iron Hands. Not that it did too much, but the speed does drop. Not that it matters right now too much because of the Tailwind, but if we do go into that Trick Room, it might actually if Ori were to click Trick Room right now, we might not even know if Iron Hands goes first or not.
We did see that knockoff onto the Tornadus, knocking off its Clover Cloak.
Yeah.
So if Alexander does manage to take down that Fergraf, he can make sure to be able to use like a Fake Out on it, or like any other additional stat drops.
Oh, absolutely. And now that Photograph is on the field. I think what are the dark moves on this Chen Pao on Alexander's side?
We do have, I believe, Sucker Punch.
And that's it. That's the
Yeah.
only dark move. So this Photograph is completely safe with its ability, just not from any kind of super effective dark type attack.
We have to understand that Ori does still have the option to terrestrialize, and using a dark type move onto a terrestrialized fairy Photograph will be not very effective, so it will not take it down.
Exactly. But even if you don't even need to commit that terror, but we're gonna see the Rain Dance come out potentially to get some of those 100% accurate Bleak Wind Storms, but also powering up that Ogerpon in the back.
We do see the Icicle Crash going into the Photograph and a critical wild charge.
critical hits.
I'm pretty sure that mattered.
I'm pretty sure that mattered too, but that's the game. It's just what happens to you sometimes. But honestly, this isn't the worst position. We get to bring in that Ogerpon for free. And on top of that, we do have the option to still Tailwind on Ori's side. I'm not sure. Did he already go for the Tailwind? I don't
Not
believe
yet.
he
He
did.
went for a Rain Dance.
He
So
went for a Rain
Alexander, he uses Icicle Crash onto that Photograph. So even if the Iron Hands did not critical hit, it might have gotten a flinch chance. So Alexander is always playing to his outs here.
Yeah, I think Ori's in a great position here, being able to probably get this Tailwind up for free, considering this Chen Pao is just going to hit the Protect button.
Yep, he definitely got that Tailwind up for free.
Yes, but what is the Ogerpon going to be attacking into? It's going to be the Ivy Cudgel into the Iron Hands, getting that critical kit KO. Looks like the RNG has evened out a little bit here, but I'm not 100% sure if that mattered. We're in the rain, no drops. Ogerpon is strong.
Yeah, I don't think that mattered. IV Cudgel is 100 base attack, and it's on top of Rain with Water Stab. Was not intimidated. Now, though we do see the Intimidate on on the Ogerpon now, but it doesn't really matter.
We're in rain.
Yeah,
we're in rain, baby. If rain's up, Ogerpon does not care. But we're gonna see the Sucker Punch getting that one-hit KO.
That's the importance of the Photograph here. If Photograph was still on the field, that Sucker Punch would have done nothing.
Exactly. But that's crazy. I didn't even think that would get the one-hit KO, but it just did. We do see the speed drop critically onto the Chiyu. Sorry, not the Chiyu. Chen Pao. Chiyu is just one of the better ones, in my opinion. It's one of my favorites. But we do see the Rock Slide taking out that Tornadus. And now all we have left is this Chen Pao. This Chen Pao does have the higher speed stat, but will it be able to survive the onslaught of both?
I do see an out for Ori here.
Oh, he does still have that Terra.
He does have something that can, help him out here.
We do see the Sucker Punch coming out. Good thing that Ori did not hit the Terra button. Otherwise, that would have been a super effective Sucker Punch. But we're going to see Landorus go down, being Choice Scarf, but just getting outspent. Critical hit, that definitely does not matter. But
Yeah, I mean, I think
It's
Alexander
4
was
times
trying to
lead.
read that Ghost Terra, and now it's just a 50-50. It's a coin flip.
yeah, I mean, we do know that Ori is faster. It just really depends on either if Sucker Punch goes off or if we get the Sacred Sword, or who I think it's who Sacred Swords first. And I don't believe Alexander has his Terra available, does he?
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I believe he already burned that Terra, but we're gonna see the Protect coming out, trying to stall out that Tailwind for just one more turn. I believe is this the last turn? We see Rain stopping.
No.
Yep, Tailwind just
is
petered
in.
out.
Yeah, Tailwind is petered
So,
out.
but we do know that Ori's is faster, so I think regardless, I think that Ori's in a really good position.
I mean, it's like a 50-50 read here now.
Yeah.
It's either you go for the Sucker Punch and beat into the Ghost Terra, or you go for the Sacred Sword. And, I mean, does it even have to Sacred Sword? Maybe we can use, like, Icicle Crash or something?
Potentially, but we're gonna see the Terra come out from Ori.
We do see that Ghost
The
Terra
Ghost type
Astralization.
Chen Pao.
And now we're just waiting.
We're just waiting. Will
it
it
gonna
be
be
a
the
Sucker
Sucker
Punch or will it be a Sacred Sword? It is gonna be a 50-50. The Sucker
we do
Punch
see
comes
the Sucker
out
Punch.
and it gets the one hit or the final hit of this matchup. Chen Pao goes down and Alexander is able to get the win,
victory,
victory in round 2. Well played by both. That was an insane end game.
Yeah, both are senior regional champions, and they were playing to their outs. Like,
They were playing-
They did not surrender. They did not give up. Ori, he had to make really good plays, but Alexander did manage to read him with that Sucker Punch into that Ghost Terra.
Yeah, it was definitely a very close game. played amazingly by both sides. I think we had a really amazing, great game too. I think the Terra. It really just depends. It really depends on what happened. It was a 50-50. If Ori decided to not Terra, potentially the Sucker Punch would have done nothing. I think.
See Ori going off.
Okay, I wasn't gonna say this because I thought it would be a little bit mean, but I think Ori just realized, and that's what he's screaming about. We knew that Chen Pao was faster, so yeah, the Terra Ghost was a little bit of a throw.
Ori does feel unfortunate, but
Yeah, but it happens to the best of us. It happens to the best.
it
of
happens
us.
to the best of us. He's still the Sacramento senior champion.
Yes.
And he went up against the Fresno regional champion. So, we have our NorCal senior goats going head to head, and that was one heck of a competitive
One
match.
heck of a competitive battle.
Sorry,
Anyways, we're going to
pardon
take
my language.
we're going to take a short break here. Round 2 is just ending up. Round 3 should be starting very soon. Thank you once again, Aaron, for being my co-caster, and we will be right back.
And welcome back to the NorCal VGC Midseason Showdown here at Kin Games in Hayward, California. My name is Ryan, joined again by Simon. I took a little bit of a break last time, but I'm here again, bringing you a great round 3 matchup. What do we have here?
I'll tell you, it's a fun one. We got Phillip W on the stream with, well, what is that? Is that a Zoroark? Is that a Hisuian Zoroark? And the Ursaluna Blood Moon. And just honestly, a lot of interesting picks here. Nothing here is going to be like a variant. Like none of these are going to be any like. You don't see these on a typical team.
And on the other side with Sebastian, we also have some weirder, kind of more niche picks. We've got the Tornadus, the Regidrago, we've got a Goldango, an Urshifu Rapid, a Hisuian Arcanine, and a Bramblegast. He makes his return.
Bramblegast is back. I just realized I didn't really give Phillip a very good introduction. I'm just so flabbergasted by the mons he picked. Like Urshifu Rapid, the Ogerpon and the Torn, sure. We see that all the time. Basculegion is also sometimes a maybe. But let's just look at that Zoroark right there. Like that's we might not even see it this match, but like we'll just not know if it is there this match because it's a Zoroark. Zoroark can transform into or become one of the opponents, like one of your Pokemon in the back. Like its ability is very very fun to play. It's like you have to do the mind games of is this Pokemon on the field a Zoroark, and if it is, how am I going to play around it? Or if it isn't a Zoroark, how am I going to play around this? You don't really know what's on the field. It's a very fun mod.
Well, we are about to get our first taste of what is on the field as we get ready to go into game 1 here. I also do just want to point out there's 3 water types on Phillip's side as well. It is a very water-heavy team with Rain Dance certainly on that Tornadus, but we'll have to see if those ever come out, as we're going to be starting with the Tornadus and the Urshifu Rapid on Phillip's side, along with the Bramblegast and the Tornadus on Sebastian's side. Now, we do have to put out the disclaimer that we don't know if there's a Zoroark, where there's a Zoroark, when there's a Zoroark, but we do know that there's Bramblegast, and we do know that Wind Rider is huge here.
Exactly, especially with those Bleak Wind Storms that could be coming out from Phillip's side. I mean, assuming that is actually Tornadus.
Well, and if it's a Zoroark, it's got Icy Wind as well, which doesn't do anything into it. It does have Hyper Voice, it does have Shadow Ball, it does have options, but
I mean, Hyper Voice won't be doing anything.
the Hyper Voice won't be. It has Shadow Ball.
So Shadow Ball would be the move of choice, if that is in fact not
A Zoroark.
Yeah, if that is in fact a Zoroark, but it doesn't look like it is a Zoroark.
Tailwind coming out of that Tornadus does confirm that it is indeed not a Zoroark, as the Tornadus on Sebastian's side is going to be mirroring it. Tailwinds for all as it activates the Wind Rider from that Bramblegast.
Ice Spinner coming out here. I don't think that Zoroark has Ice Spinner, so that's probably the Urshifu. These are both very real Pokemon. Bringing that Bramblegast down to its sash, but retaliating with a Seed Bomb and just getting the one-hit KO on the Urshifu.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know Urshifu got Ice Spinner.
It's
So I thought
definitely-
it was a team sheet error for the Icy Wind on Zoroark, and I freaked out for a moment, and then I looked up, and it totally does get... Man, you learn
I've-
something every day.
I've run
Urshifu
into
gets
it
Ice
many
Spinner.
times. It does surprising amount of damage to Ogerpon, I'll say that.
It does a surprising... Well, it does a
good
expected amount of damage
Yeah,
to Brambleghast. That's a one-hit KO if there is no Focus Sash there, but it does have one, as Basculegion will be taking up its place, or potentially a Zoroark.
Who knows? Both very cool Hisuian Pokemon.
I think I'm willing to say this is probably actually a Basculegion.
I would say it's a Basculegion too, especially since you have that Rain Dance on the field. But again, we can never be 100% sure.
You can't. It's very possible that this is just a Zoroark going for maybe a little bit of a cheeky play. I think with Basculegion, if that is what this is, Aqua Jet is probably a pretty good option here. You have the ability to KO the Brambleghast. Brambleghast does have no protect, so it can't really do anything about it. It's just going to leave the field instead. It does know that there is the option for it to take a little bit of a knockout with that Aqua Jet as it's Shadow Ball
Balls. Is
coming
that-
out of it, and that is
that-
100% the Zoroark.
That is
There
the
is
Zoroark.
no Shadow Ball on this Basculegion. Bleakwind Storm coming out as well is going to be enough to pick up the KO on this Urshifu. It hit the field, it left the field, and it's just up to the Bleakwind Storm from Sebastian's side. It does miss the Basculegion, but gets a crit on Tornadus for its troubles.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's worth it. I mean, sorry, not Basculegion. I meant Basculegion is... I think it's pretty easy. Sorry, this is really confusing, but it's Zoroark.
We're meant to confuse the players with Zoroarks, not the commentators.
Exactly. I mean, now we know that whatever's coming in here is very safe. There's not going to be an Aqua Jet coming out, which is
Yes, but there is kind of an interesting disposition that you find yourself getting put into where, because Basculegion, or Zoroark in this case, is known, and we've already had the Urshifu be knocked out, we know that Phillip's last Pokemon has to be the Basculegion. So you know what's coming after you take care of this Zoroark that's on the field. I think maybe that's why you go into the Arcanine here. You reserve your Brambleghast so you can Power Whip into the Basculegion when it comes in eventually. But it's just going to come in now. Tornadus taking its leave. Double
This looks
Basculegion on the field. This is illegal. Someone call a judge.
and the Shadow Ball is just going into that, getting a crit on the I don't know if it was Basculegion or Zoroark. I'm gonna be completely honest.
It was the Zoroark.
But yeah, the Shadow Ball went into the.
Oh, and Basculegion avoids the Bleakwind Storm. So Zoroark does fall here, but Basculegion switches in. It does get to avoid the Bleakwind Storm. Takes a little bit of damage from the Rock Slide, but that could have gone much worse.
It absolutely could have. I mean, now we get the Tornadus back on the field. Now we're going to be able to get the Swift Swim activated with potentially the Rain Dance from the other side. It just really depends on how Sebastian's going to be able to retaliate against this. He has a couple options. Actually, no, isn't this Choice Band? Is this Choice Band on the...
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So we are...
Oh, no, it's Assault Vest.
It's Assault Vest. Okay, so since it's Assault Vest, we have a couple options here. We could go for that Rock Slide again to try and take out the Torn, but honestly, at this point, I think it's already done its job. And once it gets that Rain Dance off, it probably would have done that job too. But having the extra damage on the field would be... Or having that damage off the field on Sebastian's side will be very beneficial.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of just a tricky situation when you still have Terra to deal with. You probably look at this and go, you know, you're in a pretty good spot to just be able to do a lot of damage into this Arcanine, but it does have Terra available, and it's going to make wonderful use of it right now, going Terra Fairy onto that Arcanine, making sure that it doesn't take nearly as much damage from any of these Water-type moves, 4 times weakness into a neutral hit, but it's going to be a Terra on Phillip's side as well, trading Terra for Terra, as this one falls on to the Basculegion, going Terra Steel, making sure those Rock Slides don't do as much.
That would be really nice. It does make you a little bit vulnerable to the Flare Blitz, but we're going to see the Protect coming out from the Tornadus, and the Bleakwind Storm's going to be hitting into that Protect. Potentially, we can maybe see a speed drop from the Arcanine. I don't know if we actually... I don't think it needs it, because we're going to be faster. No, it's not even faster. How come This is a very slow Bastion Legion, I think, or maybe I just don't know my.
There is no rain up, to be fair, so
That's
Switch Swim
true.
is not currently active, but it is going to be Wave Crash coming in after the Terra Blast. It goes into the Arcanine and deals plenty of damage. You don't need super effective when you can get the job done at neutral, but the problem is the damage taken from that Terra Blast puts him into range on recoil, but it's not enough. Basculegion survives.
Yeah, this is a tricky situation now. Only having like Brambleghast as your main attacker.
There's
at
no
1
protect
HP.
on the. I am so sorry. There's no protect on this
It's all good.
Bramblecast, and there is an Aqua Jet on this Basculegion. This
Basculegion.
is such a dire spot. You really needed to be able to get that knockout off of the Wave Crash recoil, and having it not happen is huge.
I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't think I think the big out for either of them is really gonna come down to who hits their Bleak Winds, because the Brambleghast is as good as toast. Well, let's just be completely honest. It can be taken out at any time with that Basculegion. Actually, we do see the Protect and the Tailwind, so we're gonna be outspeeding the Shadow Sneak.
The Shadow Sneak is actually very smart there, especially when you're dueling Tailwinds. I'm surprised we haven't seen a Rain Dance come out just yet, but I would assume activating Swift Swim is going to be next turn's big priority. It's a bit of a nothing turn as both trainers kind of look just to set up there. It is worth pointing out, if this Basculegion falls, there is no way for Bleak Windstorm to deal any damage to this Brambleghast,
Yeah.
and it's effectively just game from there. So this Basculegion has to be able to deal with this Brambleghast, and you have to probably think that making sure that you take care of it first is the big priority. That being said, I don't know where the speed calculations are. I don't know if Swift Swim is going to be enough to get priority over that Shadow Sneak with your own priority. It's so tricky.
I would hope so, but I think that we're actually gonna see the results. We're gonna see the Rain Dance coming out, trying to get that extra speed on that Basculegion, and Aqua Jet's gonna move first. This is opening up the game for Phillip, making sure that he doesn't lose to just having only Bleakwind on the field, Bleakwind Storm on the field. The only issue is that Sebastian's Bleakwind Storms are gonna be 100% accurate, and getting the double KO. That was kind of the double-edged sword of going for that Rain Dance. And Sebastian was just able to pin Phillip in a really, really awkward situation where if he goes for Rain Dance, he's going to be hit by Bleakwind, no matter what.
It was such a smart move to decide to kind of save that Brambleghast for later, knowing, hey, there's a Basculegion coming my way, I've got to be able to take care of it, and you can effectively just wall this Tornadus if you really want to. It was a really, really well thought out kind of strategy from the onset to make sure that that game went that way, and even then it was so close.
Yeah, I think it was really anyone's game, but then the last few turns, like, I think Sebastian just made all the right decisions to be able to bring it back. I think regardless, this was the Zoroark is really confusing. I mean, that's what it's meant to do, but the fact that it was like it even confused us. Like the Basculegion just seemed like the perfect spot or perfect thing in that situation, but also getting scaring to Sebastian off from keeping in his Brambleghast. He could have easily kept that thing in.
Yeah, it was
Actually,
just a good call to be able to know that, this is the time to get it out.
exactly.
And not overextend, and it's really 1 HP in a dream, because the Brambleghast existence at the end of the game there was enough to kind of pin Phillip into making these certain decisions that maybe he didn't want to make. He had to go for the Rain Dance because you weren't able to give Tailwind priority, because if you just go for anything else, Tailwind into Shadow Sneak is guaranteed to go faster than your Basculegion, which then sets up the Tornadus to hit 100% accurate Bleakwind Storms. So it's a really, really tricky situation that you found yourself in towards the end game.
Yeah. I think,
But
yeah.
if I can tangent for a moment, every Pokemon in this matchup is Zoroark. I refuse to believe that it's not brought to a game. It is my favorite Pokemon of all time.
It's a great Pokemon.
Everything is Zoroark until proven otherwise.
Yeah.
It has to be.
You're innocent until proven Zoroark.
Well, we are going to get into game 2 here in our third round here at Hayward. It is going to be the Battle of Rain once again, as it's the Ogerpon and the Ursa Luna coming out on Phillip's side with a very familiar looking response. It is the Tornadus and the Bramblegast once more for Sebastian.
Yeah, it looks like Phillip isn't really going for any kind of speed control here. Like, the Ursaluna Blood Moon, assuming it is Ursaluna Blood Moon, is still able to hit that Bramblegast for neutral damage because of the ability Mind's Eye. Sorry, yeah, Mind's Eye. Although I think, based off of what I've seen, Phillip, when he used this on his YouTube, if you guys didn't know, Phillip does YouTube, he has used a similar team with an Ursaluna. That thing is bulky as heck. That thing does not go down. So assuming that this is the Ursaluna, I think that it might be able to even live just one hit. We're gonna see the Follow Me coming out from the Ogre Pond, becoming the center of attention. And the Seed Bomb is gonna just go into it, probably predicting the Follow Me.
Does a decent amount of damage as it little over half HP, but it's the Bleak Wind Storm that's the prize of the show, dealing a good amount of damage to that Ogre Pond and dropping its speed, but it does miss the Blood Moon Ursaluna. Hyper Voice comes out of that Ursaluna and does a huge amount of damage to both Pokemon. It is worth pointing out that both Zoroark and Ursaluna have Hyper Voice, but only one of them can hit a Ghost type with it.
Yeah.
So it is confirmed with Follow Me, with Hyper Voice. Neither of them are Zoroark, but that is a ton of damage and a crazy effective Follow Me there.
Yeah, I think just another Hyper Voice would do it, but we're gonna see the Spiky Shield come out, blocking any damage from this opposing team, and we see a Tailwind come out from the Tornadoes, boosting the attack, and then Vacuum Wave just hits.
Priority moves, they go crazy. I'm assuming that was probably a Seed Bomb that was going to be going back into the Ursaluna there. I actually really like the idea of, that you don't have the ability for them to kind of click Follow Me safely again. It's a death sentence for that Ogre Pond. So you just go for the Tailwind into Seed Bomb, you get Wind Rider boost, deal a ton of damage to this Ursaluna, but Vacuum Wave. It's incredible what priority can do when you're at low HP and just kind of smack something really hard.
Yeah,
So,
honestly, I forget about Vacuum Wave all the time. I forget that it's even a priority move. Isn't it a special priority move, right?
I think it's special fighting type?
Yeah, special fighting type, and it was able to hit because of the Mind's Eye. But we see the Arcanine coming in, lowering the attack of the Ogre Pond. Honestly, I don't know if Phillip really cares about that, considering it's already at very low HP, but we just see a Protect coming out from the Ursaluna, just keeping it very safe from any kind of attacks. For example, this Choice Band Rock Slide that's going to be hitting the Ogre Pond and taking it out. Honestly, you weren't really going to get too much more value out of the Ogre Pond, except for maybe doing one more Follow Me, but we do just have double spread moves on the board. Bleak Wind coming out, just basically giving Phillip a free swap into whatever he'd like, perhaps even a Zoroark?
You could go a Zoroark here. I would love for you to go a Zoroark because, again, I just love that little guy. But I think a Tornadus, if it is in the back here, would be very, very good. Being able to dual Tailwinds and kind of pull the match back into your favor in terms of speed ties. But it's the Urshifu hitting the field, and that is not something that an Arcanine is all too happy about, but this is a Terra Fairy Terra Blast Arcanine, and it does have the ability to kind of swing back very, very hard into this Urshifu. You always need to be worried about the fact that it could be a Zoroark. Normal Ghost is neutral into Fairy.
Yeah.
It's going to do a lot of damage, though, so you do have to be a little bit careful.
Yeah. Oh, I misspoke that. I forgot that this isn't Banded. This is actually Assault Vest. But we're going to see the Terra coming out from Sebastian. Seeing that Terra Fairy on the Arcanine, potentially a Terra Blast, or even if not, just defensively, it's better into the surging strikes that could be happening. We see Urshifu use Icy Wind. Does Urshifu learn Icy Wind? I don't
Urshifu
think
does
so.
not, but Zoroark certainly knows Icy Wind. It's going to get a speed drop onto that Arcanine as Bleak Wind Storm comes back in. It's a critical hit on the Blood Moon Ursaluna, and a speed drop on the Urshifu, which we now know is the pristine Zoroark. So a speed drop on both sides as Terra Blast is going to be coming out of this Arcanine into this Blood Moon Ursaluna. It will be enough to pick up that KO. Unfortunately, not getting a chance to move this turn. That was fortuitous for sure.
I will say, is this is choice specs on the
It's choice scarf
it's
on
choice
the
scarf
Zoroark.
on the Zoroark.
Yes, so it is
So
locked
we are-
into.
A move that Bramblegast does not get hit by.
Well, Bramblegast
Oh,
is
Bramblegast
gone,
is gone.
thankfully,
Oh my
but I
gosh.
still think now that you got a little bit of a reaction out of Phillip there as the Blood Moon goes down, and I don't think it's necessarily because the Blood Moon got knocked out and didn't get to move. I think it's more so because that Zoroark is now locked into exclusively hitting Icy Wind for the rest of the game, and that does a good amount of damage to the Tornadus, and the speed drops are good, but I don't know if that is enough to really make you, like, comfortable in this endgame.
Exactly. Knowing that Urshifu is choice banned, it's going to be locked into whatever goes out here. But we're going to see a Terra from the side of Phillip. It's going to be that Urshifu going to the water, just trying to get that big damage off. I think that it would be a really good, that's just probably the best move. But I think Icy Wind is probably one of the better things you want to be locked into here, but again, I guess it doesn't matter, because you're not faster. And Urshifu's speed fell, that's gonna really close it out, but there's still potential. The Rock Slide comes out.
Rock Slide comes out, does not do quite enough damage to be able to pick up the KO, as Surging Strikes are going to go into this Hisuian Arcanine. 3 crits 3 times, but you're only going to need 2 here, as that looked like a little bit of a high roll on the second hit, enough to knock out the Hisuian Arcanine. But this is a Urshifu that is knocking on the door. It's very low health.
It's very low health.
This is a rough one.
Yeah, I mean, at least the Tailwind's petered out, but it's not gonna matter.
Not when another Urshifu is coming in on the other side here. Dual Surging Strikes, I think it favors the one with more health here, as that is a rough outlook.
Yeah, and that is gonna be a battle canceled, and Sebastian gonna be taking the win in round 3.
That was a really, really interesting set, though, especially as you kind of like go back into game 1. I think game 1 really was like the tail of the set there, as you get the mind games coming out of when do you get to use your priority moves, which one's going to out priority the other one, being restricted into that tailwind before you click Rain Dance, because you know you need to mirror their tailwinds. That kind of small stuff, and just the pressure Bramblegast brought simply by existing was huge.
Yeah, it barely did any damage that round. Like, just existing was enough for it to be a threat. Like, even though it didn't do too much, like from a fighting, like a damage standpoint, it still did so much. I will say, the last few turns of the final game, it was still anyone's game, but like a few things went wrong in Phillip's against Phillip rather, and that kind of just lost all hope of him bringing back the game. Although being locked into Icy Wind was also very difficult.
Yeah, the Icy Wind lock-in is a little bit rough there. Obviously, it didn't matter. The Zoroark ends up getting KO'd before it can even move again, but it does kind of just make you think about when you're using that choiced Pokemon and getting locked into kind of those lower damaging moves can be a little tricky. I think it really comes down to that Ursaluna getting knocked out beforehand is a little unfortunate. But it was still very well played by both sides.
Absolutely.
Getting to see Zoroark at any time is always an absolute pleasure, but we'll get to see more Pokemon coming up soon, as we are going to go ahead and take a quick break. We're going to get ready for round 4. We'll be back shortly. And welcome back to the NorCal Midseason Showdown here at Kin Games in Hayward, California. My name is Ryan, joined once again by Aaron, and we have got a bit of a mirror match here as we get into our round 4 of Swiss between Brandon and Ben here. Two of these things look very similar to each other.
Yeah, definitely. We see the Armor Rouge and NDD, a very popular archetype since the Regulation A. As you know, I think Armor Rouge is currently the only Pokemon that can run Expanding Force, and with NDD Psychic Surge, we get the Psychic Terrain on. Storied history here. Brandon D has been running ARM-DD since the beginning of Regulation A and is no stranger to this archetype right here.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how both trainers, despite running kind of the same idea of that size spam core, have very different takes on it. You can see, obviously, Brandon's going very heavy into the Trick Room aspect of it, having Torkoal, having the Blood Moon or Saluna. You get a little bit of speed outside of it, especially with the Teal Mask Ogerpon. But on the other side, Ben's running a bit more of like almost a good stuff core, where you've got, Grimmsnarl to reflect and up your defenses. You've got Ogerpon able to up its own defense. You've got Landorus able to spread Intimidate over the board. It's very two different ways to run this same idea. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, Brandon Davis really leans into the heavy offensive side, while Ben tends to go for more of like a balanced, defensive position here, being able to attack, but also being able to take hits, while Brandon just wants to hit.
Well, we won't have to wait long to see how this one shakes out as we get into game one of our round 4 of Swiss here. It's going to be the Landorus and the Armor Rouge coming out from Ben's side here, and the Ogerpon and Armor Rouge on the other one. We do have a bit of an error on the screen itself. That is indeed a Landorus Incarnate and not the Landorus Therian. I put up the wrong sprite there because this might be the first time I have ever seen a Landorus Incarnate, period.
Yeah, the good thing about Landis Incarnate is like people forget that it has sheer force, and being able to use Life Orb, you get that Life Orb bonus, but you don't take that HP, HP. What's that word? Yeah, HP drop in it. We do. So Landorus Incarnate, it's going to be able to deal tons of damage, being boosted.
We are going to see the Terra coming out immediately, as it's going to be the Ogerpon donning the teal mask and upping its speed, as well as making sure that it's dealing quite a bit of extra damage on those grass-type moves. Landorus just choosing to be a little bit more on the safe side as it goes for the Protect, just leaving these Armor Rouges to do their bidding. Ivy Cudgel goes into that Protect, does no damage there, but it is the Expanding Force coming out of Brandon's Armor Rouge, going into the opposing Armor Rouge, as it does lose a little bit of HP off of the Life Orb, and a Flamethrower the other way into the Teal Mask Ogerpon. That's a one-hit KO.
Yeah, typically I don't see a lot of Armor Rouges running Flamethrower, so when I saw that, it was... it's quite a smart move. We do see a lot of Armor Rouge running Wide Guard, so Heat Wave would have essentially did nothing, in that case. But we did see that Flamethrower just one-shot that Ogerpon right there.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice that you kind of have to commit to in Builder, whether or not you're going to go for something that does get countered by Wide Guard or not. When you look at these mirror matches, because there is Wide Guard on Brandon's Armor Rouge, when you look at those mirror matches, it's so important what you choose to get around it. And here it clearly paid wonderful dividends. Fluttermane is on the field for Brandon, however, and that is not something you can ever afford to ignore.
Yeah, definitely. We see that Brandon, he just wanted to, pedal to the metal. He wanted to just attack. If Ben did not play that more defensive side, Ben definitely would have been on the back pedal here.
Yeah, it was a really good, just patient play, as we're sending in the Ursaluna as well here. Again, my team sheets are not going all too good here, as we have a Blood Moon Ursaluna on the screen. It is not a Blood Moon Ursaluna, it is a regular Ursaluna. I dropped the ball a little bit on that one, but this one is no dropped ball. That is a Terra Poison on that Landorus, going for a Protect into that Armor Rouge, making sure it stays nice and safe, as Moonblast comes into the Terra Poison Landorus. It deals not a whole ton of damage, as Earth Power goes into the Blood Moon, and it's a critical hit. That is huge.
Yeah, that's definitely... This game is going definitely in Ben's favor. That Poison Terra not only is defensive against the Fairy type, but it boosts its Sludge Bomb. So we now have a Sheer Force Life or boosted Sludge Bomb here. That's going to be one scary Landorus here.
You do have to keep in mind that now your Terra Poison, you've gone from immune to these Earth or ground type moves from the Ursaluna to weak to them. So you do have to kind of make sure that you're at least paying a little bit of precedence into what this Ursaluna can do now that it's on the field. It does have the Life Orb, the Flame Orb Guts activated. It is burned, but doubling its attack instead. So definitely a tricky move, but I think one that maybe benefits Ben a little bit just on speed tiers.
Yeah, we do see the Shadow Ball going into that Armor Rouge. It's going to be super effective damage, being able to take down that Armor Rouge. On the good side, though, there is no current Trick Room, so we'll see that Landorus move next.
Landorus will get to move into the Earth Power once more, dealing big damage into that Ursaluna. It is enough to get the KO, crit or no crit. You're down to 2 Pokemon left for Brandon already. You coming into this match knowing, you're probably the one to put the pedal onto the pedal to the metal, and kind of falling behind just to that slow, patient play, making sure that you're protecting at the right time, terroring at the right time from Ben. It's tough to overcome for sure.
Yeah, definitely want to see those you in higher level play, you definitely see a lot of scouting, and that's why you see such a wide use of protect. Ben definitely here wanted to definitely scout what kind of habits that Brandon have, and you just can see that Brandon's playing very, very aggressively, going for that shadow ball into the Landorus slot.
Does a good amount of damage, but not enough to pick up the KO, as Shadow Ball from Ben's Fluttermane will be going into the opposition, and that is enough to get the KO. That is another one-hit knockout from the super effective Shadow Ball. It's just up to this Armarouge to move left, or rather the Landorus. It's super effective once more. Earth Power into that Armarouge. Sheer Force Life Orb is no joke. That's game one. Nice and quick. It was maybe 5 turns.
Yeah, one thing that it's really good to note is that neither of them really pushed into their Trick Room aspect. It feels like both players wanted to, get Trick Room up, but they didn't want the advantage to go to the other player. So it's like if the one player uses Trick Room, then the other player gets to double in and attack.
I do think it was interesting specifically that Brandon did not bring in Didi, but he did bring the Armarouge. So you kind of bring half of the size spam where you really want to click those Expanding Force normally as a double target move, and it's only single target in that case. Still did a decent little chunk of damage when it did connect, but it's another kind of layer to the matchup where you don't necessarily need to bring your Didi if you think maybe Ben is going to. He can set the psychic terrain for you.
Yeah.
And we never got to see his last Pokemon, so it's very possible that he did have it in the back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these mirror matchups. You definitely want to take advantage of your opponent's Pokemon. Sometimes that may not work out. That's like kind of a tough or hard call. But that's sometimes the call that you need to make to win.
We'll be interested to see if that call comes out in the next one, but I do kind of want to just bring a little bit of light to that Landorus. For so many years now, Landorus Therian has been just the absolute pinnacle of VGC, absolutely dominating whatever meta it's allowed into. So to see a Landorus incarnate coming in and just doing all of this huge work, Terra Poison to make sure that Fluttermane pretty much couldn't touch it, and then anything that it looked at, the Ursaluna, the Armarouge, just fell.
Yeah, I mean, people tend to forget that Landorus Incarnate and other modes of play, like for the singles OU version of it, you definitely see Landorus Incarnate with its Life Orb, sheer force powered, earth power, just like dominate the OU tier. So I mean, it's been relegated to like the unofficial Ubers tier for quite a while. So like, I feel like Ben is taking this offensive aspect and putting it into his play in VGC. We also see that like Landorus Incarnate is definitely faster than its Therian form. So Ben can play a more speedy mode if he wanted to.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting take on a classic strategy, if you would. But no more interesting takes, just interesting facts. We're going to get into game number 2 here shortly in round 4 of Swiss. It's going to be the leads of Landorus, Armarouge one more time for Ben, as we're getting into the Armarouge in Didi, not taking a risk of potentially making Ben bring it yourself. Size spam is active.
So like in this situation here, we have Brandon basically setting up the psychic terrain for Ben. So like we were talking about mirror matchups and using the Pokemon. So now Ben's Armarouge not only gets the benefits of psychic terrain, he does have that offensive presence of Landorus now too.
It should be worth pointing out though that there is a wide guard on Brandon's side as well, so you can always wide guard away the size spam now that it is or expanding force rather, now that it is a spread move. I don't believe that wide guard is shared either. No, it's just the wide guard on the one side, so it's not an option that Ben has necessarily, but you can't really spend the time wide guarding and ignore this Landorus, because if this Landorus gets to move the way it wants to, it's going to be big damage, and it is going to be a Terra on turn 1 going on to the Armarouge. I'm not quite sure which one it's on yet, but it is going to be a Terra Psychic Armarouge. That must be the one for Ben, as it is not Terra Psychic on the other side. It is going to be an Earth Power, however, going into Brandon's Armarouge, and it's a one-hit knockout.
I'm like wondering if Brandon could have circumvented that using Follow Me, or using his Terra of his own. What Terra's type is Brandon's?
It is Terra Grass. It is kind of that classic can't hit me with the fire move. Flash Fire. look that we'll normally get. There is a consolation prize in the fact that you do get Trick Room up. Ursaluna gets to hit the field now. The unfortunate part being Ursaluna still needs to activate Flame Orb in order to get its guts going. So there's a little bit more setup that Brandon needs to get done here, but having Trick Room first and foremost is huge.
Yeah, Ben definitely had a lot of pressure on Brandon's side, being able to use that Sludge Bomb on the Armor Rouge in the case that it did Grass Terra, but it didn't, so it was able to, like, you know, threaten it with Earth Power, and we saw it literally just one-hit KO that Armor Rouge there.
It is going to be the Protect coming out of this Ursaluna. No surprise here as it's looking to get the Flame Orb active and activate its Guts ability, as Dazzling Gleam will be coming out of the Indeedee. Just a little bit of chip damage, but not too much, as Landorus with the Earth Power is able to pick up a quick KO on the Indeedee. Brandon down to just his final 2 Pokemon here, as Trick Room from Armor Rouge will reset the dimensions.
Ben is playing such fantastically right now. He's punishing these passive mistakes, and he's also punishing Brandon's aggressive plays as well. You know, he has both patience, and he has, like, if he wants to, he can play offensive too. With that Landorus, its high speed is really good in this situation now. The board state is definitely in Ben's favor. Now that Trick Room has, you know, the dimensions have been reversed.
You do have to keep in mind, though, that this Ogerpon is on the field. Terra is available, and if it chooses to click it, it will certainly be the fastest thing on the field. It does need to worry about Flamethrower from Armor Rouge, as we saw in Game 1, but Terra or no Terra, you're going to be weak to the Flamethrower regardless, so it's a choice on where you necessarily want to spend your Terra there, but you could have a little bit of speed control. You could maybe negate a little bit more damage from this Landorus if you're able to outspeed it, and it looks like that is going to be the choice as the Terra Orb begins to charge, falls on top of this Ogerpon, and Teal Mask is embraced.
Yeah, no matter what, though, Ben does have pressure against this this Teal Mask Ogerpon right now. He has ability to do either Sludge Bomb into it or Flamethrower into it, so we just have to see what happens.
It's going to be a Protect coming out of the Landorus, making sure that it stays nice and safe. Remnant of turn 1 back in Game 1. It's actually a double Protect this time, though, making sure that just no shenanigans happen on either side. Ivy Cudgel going into that Armor Rouge, not effective into a protecting move, as Facade also not effective into that protecting move. Patient play.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely the play. Ben knows that this Ogerpon has a choice band, so whatever move that Brandon uses, that he's locked into it. So, you know, using double protect to be able to scout out that move. Now he knows what it is.
Ivy Cudgel the call once more as it is forced into it with the choice band. Will be going into this Armor Rouge, boosted by the Terra, and it is enough to pick up the KO. Armor Rouge will be falling, but Landorus will be looking to avenge its fallen brethren. It is going to be the Sludge Bomb coming out of this Landorus back into that Ogerpon, and it is enough to return the KO. Sheer Force Life Orb once again cannot be understated. That is crazy damage.
But now we have that Guts boosted Facade on the Ursaluna, just taking it out right there. You know, Brandon definitely brought this game back. He, you know, positioned very carefully, and even though Ben did a lot of his, like, tried to do speed control things here, he could not bring it to, you know, a definite win.
Yeah, it is unfortunately still a 2v1. Armor Rouge Landorus was the lead from Ben there. It was everything Brandon had just to get the first 2 off the field, and admittedly brilliantly piloted from Ben here. Both Pokemon are going to be outspeeding. It's a Moonblast, it's an Ivy Cudgel. It's unfortunately the end of the game. I don't believe that crit mattered in any universe. That was just textbook. Absolute textbook.
Definitely. I mean, Ben, he knew his patient plays. He saw the choice band on Ogerpon, and, you know, why not just protect? Like, you get to scout out what move he's using. If Brandon wanted to use the Terra, you got to scout that out too. And then you can punish him for it.
Yeah, and it was really smart, you know, target selection as well, making sure that you go after the Ogerpon first. You could have Earth Powered into the Ursaluna and taken it out, but you know that Trick Room's not an option anymore, so you take over the speediest thing on the field, make sure that it's no longer a threat, and by the time that your last 2 Pokemon come in, it's just kind of easy pickings from there. So incredibly well played by both sides, but Ben just looked like he was in the zone.
Yeah, definitely. Like, people forget that Landorus Incarnate just, outputs so much damage, especially with Life Orb and Sheer Force. People also forget that its speed tier, it's over 100 base speed. It's fast.
It's me. I'm people. I forgot.
It's fast. Like, the people only think about Landorus Therian and its Intimidate. They generally don't think about Landorus Incarnate and it's like high special attack and high speed. Using Sludge Bomb to be able to take out Calming Grass Cores, like any Overpawn essentially. And yeah, it just did wonders. I feel like that was Ben's MVP right there.
Yeah, definitely the Landorus coming in and doing an absolute ton of work. Speaking of work to do, we've got a little bit to go before we get round 5 set up here. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to the NorCal VGC Mid-Season Showdown here at Kin Games in Hayward, California. I am once again Ryan, joined here by once again Aaron, and we are here in round 5 of Swiss with a great match up here against Joey and Haotian. Both of these teams, at a glance, look very similar to our last round.
Yeah, they're both definitely playing some kind of like balance. You don't see any like definitive speed control. Like normally you have the prankster tailwind in a lot of teams. You don't see that in these here. You can see that a lot of their Pokemon, they can take a hit and then dish it out back.
Yeah, it's you've got the Iron Hands, you've got the Fluttermane, you've got your Intimidator, be it Arcanine or Landorus, and then that's kind of where you start to deviate a little bit. Roaring Moon, Goldango, Urshifu Rapid for Joey, and a King Gambit Volcarona Amoonguss on Haotian's side. Definitely two very different looks to that core.
Yeah, we did see King Gambit recently win a Midseason Showdown in the NorCal area in Sunnyvale. The card art yesterday with Neil VGC, using that King Gambit's power to be able to take down, I believe Will was in the finals yesterday.
Yeah, it's definitely something that if gone unchecked can do just an absolute ton of damage, especially when you have the Intimidator in Arcanine on Joey's side. You've got to be a little bit careful about when you're sending that out, making sure that you don't give any free boosts with that King Gambit's Defiance. However, Arcanine is going to feel very pivotal in this matchup with the Amoonguss on the other side having something to be able to deal super effective damage against it. You do have the Roaring Moon. It does unfortunately not have access to a flying type move like some Roaring Moons do. So you really are looking forward to the Flare Blitz from the Arcanine really being your best way of kind of countering this Amoonguss.
Yeah, when you were talking about the King Gambit Defiant ability, it really does put into perspective what kind of start that Joey has to put on. He has to be very considerate on his Intimidates here. Like, he is not able to freely use his Intimidate Pokemon like Haotian can into Joey's team.
Yeah, it definitely brings a dynamic. That being said, getting the Defiant Pokemon out there is the easy part. Getting value out of it a lot of the times can be the tricky situation that you find yourself put in. But we are going to be getting into game 1 of round 5 here. This is our final round of Swiss before we go into Top Cut. Both of these trainers up and ready. Let's see what they've got in store for us. It is going to be the Iron Hands and the Landorus on the side of Haotian, and the Roaring Moon and Iron Hands on the side of Joey. So a bit of a similar start for the two of them, both of them having the Iron Hands, but like we had mentioned, the Intimidate is free on the side of Haotian. He can just lead it with no worries. There is no Intimidate on the side of Joey, so it is the -1 hitting both of those physical Pokemon.
Yeah, on the bright side though, Joey does have does he have Breaking Swipe? Yeah, he has Breaking Swipe on the Roaring Moon, which can essentially act as Intimidate, but he still does have to be careful of the King Gambit because any stat drops will result in an attack bonus for King Gambit.
Yeah, so if you Breaking Swipe and that King Gambit decides to switch in, it is effectively the same as if you had intimidated it. There is no difference. So it's a tricky spot to find yourself kind of in when you have that good Defiant Pokemon that is always lurking around the corner. Fake Out coming from the Iron Hands into that one. It's going to make sure that both the Landorus and the Roaring Moon flinch. A little bit of chip on both sides, and that is about as neutral of a turn as a neutral turn gets.
Yeah, definitely. We do see these Pokemon. They're very bulky. They're very not super offensive. They want to play kind of the slow balance game here. It looks like, you know, we're gonna see some kind of control. Like it really depends on what kind of control that we're gonna see here. Speed control, I don't think necessarily is really a dominant factor in this game, simply because both teams, they can take hits. We do see a switch out from Haotian, and he takes out Landorus, maybe gets another Intimidate later on.
Yeah, that Landorus is going to be taking a break in the back as it is going to be the King Gambit coming out, but it's not the breaking swipe. It's a knockoff going into that King Gambit. The black glasses from that King Gambit have been knocked out, but Drain Punch into the Roaring Moon is super effective and enough to pick up the knockout there. That's actually a really good idea, getting that King Gambit in as Drain Punch goes from Iron Hand to Iron Hand, a little bit of a health swap between the two of them. It is a good idea getting the King Gambit out. You really are looking for that breaking swipe to come in the situation of what just happened where you lose the black glasses instead. I think you're fine with that.
You're fine, but definitely you lose out on that dark type damage. That black glasses really does give a significant boost, especially in the Terra Dark. As we see, I think it was piloted originally by Emilio Forbes when he won the Fresno Regionals with that dark Terra type King Gambit. That black glasses really just enhanced his dark type attacks. Now that he does not have that dark black glasses, the dark type attacks are slightly less strong, but King Gambit still has a very high base attack here.
It is important coming into a Goldango, though, because while your dark type attack probably gets a knockout on the Goldango if it doesn't Terra, if it does Terra, those dark type attacks are kind of your only measure against it, and Ironhead's not going to be doing all too much, but it is going to be a Terastallization coming out here. It will be onto the Goldango as it dons the Dragon Hat this time, making sure that it is safe from that typical Fire, Water, Grass core.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed seeing the rise of Dragon Goldango.
Yeah, Haotian's King Gambit, it's definitely forcing a lot of different plays from Joey, as like you see, we definitely saw that Dragon Terra onto it, just so it could avoid super effective damage on the dark type attacks.
Dragon's going on both sides as the Shadow Ball goes into the King Gambit, do a little bit of chip damage, but nothing all too crazy. As the Ice Punch goes into the Goldango, it's a good call on the Terastallization there, as a critical hit makes a difference. 2 critical hits in a row there. The Goldango was just not meant to be.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that Joey had to, you know, face those 2 critical hits. Haotian definitely did read into that matchup. Going for that super effective Ice Punch would have not been very effective, but he was forcing these Terra types. Like that King Gambit is just so pivotal on Haotian's team right now.
Yeah, the King Gambit pretty much made it so you had to go for that Terra Dragon there, and the Ice Punch is surefire. If it does Terra, awesome. You get the super effective move. If it doesn't Terra, you're still probably fine with that. Iron Hands will be taking a rest from the battlefield for now as Haotian decides to switch into his Amoonguss, making sure to redirect things away from this King Gambit. Sucker Punch from the King Gambit, bringing Fluttermane down to low as Dazzling Gleam, super effective into that Terastallized King Gambit. It will leave the field.
Yeah, but Haotian now has this Amoonguss. It's just resistant to both the Iron Hand, both stab. Actually, all 4 stabs from here, fighting electric in its grass and poison typing against the fairy type. Well, I mean, sorry. So I guess the ghost type still does neutral damage.
The ghost type does still do neutral damage, but you really want to be able to do more than just click Shadow Ball for the most part. It is going to be the Landorus coming back out one more time. That's a -2 on this Iron Hands as it wasn't able to get off the field, and that is the Towel for game 1, as that was just a very well piloted match from Haotian there, making sure that he really kind of knew his matchup and knew his pins, enforced the kind of just awkward positions that Joey found himself in.
Yeah, like we said, that King Gambit was definitely such a strong Pokemon into Joey's team. He forced the Terastallization just so that Goldango could survive, but that like allowed Haotian to safely Ice Punch the Goldango, for example.
Yeah, it's really, really important to kind of understand where your priority has to lie in terms of when you're Terastallizing, when you're not Terastallizing. I almost think you could have maybe switched into like the Flutter Mane there because you know that you're being forced into that terastallization, but then with the double crit, your Flutter Mane falls and gets nothing out of it, and you're in the same spot next turn. So it's a really tough spot to be in. I do like the idea of going for the Dragon Terra, maybe something like if there wasn't 2 crits, maybe you do manage out of that one, but just a tough position to find yourself in.
Yeah, King Gambit just has such strong abilities into Joey's team here. It basically resists most, if not all, the stab from the Pokemon here. Like the only thing that could take it down in one shot would be that Iron Hands. But as we saw, Haotian, he has a defensive Terra in the Dragon, Dragon Terra for defensive pivots. But like that King Gambit is just preventing Joey from being able to use Intimidate to its best ability, because you give Intimidate to King Gambit, it just gains more attack, and it just like it's free to use it's Kowtow, Cleave, Sucker Punch onto your team.
Yeah, it was scary enough without the Defiant boost. With the Defiant boost, it definitely becomes a force to be reckoned with. I'm interested to see there was no Arcanine in that game. Obviously, you don't want to necessarily bring that Intimidate into a spot where it's a little bit more dangerous, but we'll see if it finds its way into this one as we get ready for game 2 here. I'm interested to see where the King Gambit comes out, if it's going to be led into, maybe pressured a little bit more, force the Dragon Terra with Flutter Mane on the field. There's a couple different outs that you could have for that one. As we see the leads hitting the field, it's Flutter Mane and Amoonguss for the Shadow of Haotian, and it is going to be the Roaring Moon Iron Hands, a familiar lead for Joey.
Yeah, now we see that this Flutter Mane is going to be may potentially force some things, like due to the quad weakness in fairy types towards it. Like, or is the Roaring Moon, is it going to be terrestrializing, or is it going to protect and kind of scout for things?
Yeah, everything on this field really does not like seeing a Flutter Mane. I guess Iron Hands is typically fine with it. It can take a hit and then get that nice heavy slam back into it. But if you do switch into, say, a King Gambit, that heavy slam's not doing a whole ton of damage. You could Rage Powder it away. There's a lot of different options for Haotian to make sure that its Flutter Mane stays safe. And on the flip side, that Flutter Mane is threatening so incredibly much into both of these Pokemon on Joey's side.
Definitely. We did talk about the Amoonguss being threatening, but now it's being taken out into a more offensive and threatening Landorus here. That Landorus using its Intimidate ability to lower the attack of both Iron Hands and Roaring Moon.
It is going to be a Terastallization coming out on the side of Joey here, as the hat will fall on Roaring Moon this game. Terra Poison is the call, making sure that it doesn't take nearly as much damage coming out of the Fairy type moves from the Flutter Mane. It is going to be moving first as Iron Hands fakes out into the Amoonguss slot, making sure Landorus does not get any damage off, but its knockoff into the Flutter Mane Choice Specs is no more, as Dazzling Gleam comes out. It does a decent little chunk of damage, but not nearly as much as you would have wanted that to do to a Roaring Moon. I think that was probably the best case scenario for Joey.
Yeah, at the same time, Haotian, he's just forcing these defensive Terras. Like, Joey can't react properly to it. Like, Haotian is in a position where it's like, hey, you either Terra or you lose Pokemon.
Well, and it feels especially bad because you switch in the Landorus, and, it's good that you have the Intimidate coming down, but it's even better that you just switched out your very fast ground-type Pokemon in front of a now Terra Poison. It can deal a ton of damage with that one. It is going to be the Choice Scarf getting knocked off by that Roaring Moon, as Shadow Ball will be coming into this Iron Hands. It is a critical hit, dealing a decent amount of damage there, and it gets the special defense drop, as Stomping Tantrum will go into the Iron Hands as well. It's super effective and does get the knockout. You do wonder if that crit mattered. Stomping Tantrum does a ton of damage, and it was faked out the turn before, but it's switched in, so I don't actually think it gets the benefit from Stomping Tantrum. But regardless, it does a ton of damage.
Yeah, Landorus does have, 145... Landorus Therian has, 145 base attack, I think? Either 135 or
Yeah, it's up there.
I do think that crit kind of mattered, because Iron Hands has a gargantuous HP and defensive stat. That's the reason why it runs Assault Vest here.
Unfortunately, it is a riddle we will never know the answer to, as it's not a unfortunate position just yet to be in. You definitely don't necessarily want to be kind of on this back foot. You maybe wanted to keep that Iron Hand so it can get a little bit more value, try and take out the Flutter Mane. I think it probably went into Heavy Slam for that turn as well. But now you have a Flutter Mane of your own. You are threatening quite a bit of damage, as it is going to be the switch out from the Landorus. We are going to be seeing the Amoonguss once more hitting the field. The knockoff will be the call into the Amoonguss, deals a little bit of chip damage, and will knock the Rocky Helmet off, but not before taking a little bit of damage from it. Icy Wind comes out from the Flutter Mane, connecting onto both targets. Doesn't do a ton of damage, but more importantly, does drop the speed.
Yeah, Haotian with his Amoonguss is definitely doing a lot of like pressuring here. We did see that Moonblast KO the Haotian's Flutter Mane, so now he doesn't have that like speedy offensive Pokemon. But we have the threat of Amoonguss and Rage Powder or Spore, among other things. Like, so Haotian, he can just take his time. And like this, like none of the other Pokemon are really threatening this Amoonguss here. You use Shadow Ball on it, it does less than half HP.
Yeah, neither of the Pokemon on the field really want to be looking at this Amoonguss right now, especially with no way to really get around the Rage Powder. And then you do have to think about maybe if you play into the Rage Powder and you end up seeing a Spore, or maybe even worse, a Fake Out into a Spore could be potentially devastating. It is worth pointing out that this does mean that there is no King Gambit in the back, that we have seen all of the Pokemon on the field, and we are seeing a Hover here. That could be potentially very interesting to note, but it's just so much pressure being exerted on the side of Haotian here. Amoonguss, you can never really ignore. Iron Hands, you can barely ever kill. It's so much happening.
Yeah, the adjustment that Haotian made, he's definitely like playing. I feel like he's playing more defensive. He wants to go for this like guaranteed type of win. And now that, you know, we don't see the King Gambit here, Joey is able to go freely for these Intimidates, lowering the attack of this Iron Hand especially.
It is going to be a Terastallization coming out on the side of Haotian, going into that Iron Hands, opting for the Terra Water Hat to make sure that it does not take any extra damage from the Moon Blasts, but unfortunately that Flutter Mane has left the field. Breaking Swipe coming out from the Roaring Moon is going to lower the attack of the Iron Hands and the Amoonguss. That does mean that with the Intimidate, that is a -2 attack onto that Iron Hands, so that is not a ton of damage coming out of that Wild Charge.
Yeah, I think a little bit of momentum is coming back onto Joey's side. Like he's free to kind of like chip away at this Iron Hands, knowing it's not going to be dealing that much damage. We do see that the Roaring Moon is still the fastest on the field, so you do another Breaking Swipe, it just reduces the attacks to 0.4 attack instead. Yeah.
It does mean that you are leaving this Amoonguss alone, though, and we did see the Spore come out there. Arcanine is now asleep, as Knockoff will be coming into that Iron Hands, knocking off its Assault Vest. There's pretty much no more items on the side of Haotian here. Wild Charge will be going into that Roaring Moon. -2 makes it not do all too much damage, but it is pretty meaningful chip, as Spore will be coming into the Arcanine, calling the switch, and unfortunately not getting it. That is a waste turn from Amoonguss. Arcanine could wake up here, and that could be big.
Definitely. I agree. Like, that Arcanine, now it's the second turn of sleep. It's threatening a wake up right now. It has super effective damage in that Flare Blitz into Amoonguss. Whether it wants to use it or not, that's up to Joey.
It's going to be the Iron Hands opting to switch off of the field here, as Landorus will be the call, hitting the field once more. Intimidate dropping down to the Arcanine and the Roaring Moon. I believe that's -2 on this Roaring Moon now. I don't think it has switched yet, as it is going to go for the Protect, keeping itself nice and safe here from a potential Spore, as Arcanine will take yet another turn of sleep here, unfortunately not to wake up, but Spore into the Protect. A good call, a patient play from Joey. I really like that one.
Yeah, that was I feel like that was Joey's best play. He got to keep his Roaring Moon awake, and now we know in this next turn that the Arcanine, if it stays in the field, will wake up.
Yeah, it is guaranteed to wake up sooner rather than later. I'm interested to see where the target selection necessarily comes in. It's kind of a tricky situation to be here, as it's a Protect from this Amoonguss, making sure that it stays nice and safe. Arcanine is going to wake up on this turn. It is going for it extreme speed into the Landorus. A decent little bit of damage as it brings it down close to the red. Breaking Swipe going into that Amoonguss. No Protect is going to Stop it as the breaking swipe into the Landorus is not quite enough to pick up the KO. Importantly, though, it does get the -1 onto it as the stopping tantrum is still enough to pick up the knockout there, but that is a very good call, making sure that you protect, or you read the protect rather. You didn't go into the Amoonguss, you didn't necessarily get too overexcited.
Yeah, I feel like Joey, he played that turn wonderfully. It just didn't work out in the end for him. He didn't get enough damage onto that Landorus due to the Roaring Moon being intimidated twice, so its attack is effectively halved here. On that side, like, I think he was willing to bet that maybe if the Arcanine wakes up, it might go for a Flare Blitz onto that Amoonguss, and Haotian trying to read that, but Joey probably wanted to call that out and go for that extreme speed onto Landorus and to just try to get that KO, like pivotal KO, because now Haotian, he can take his Landorus and switch it back, and I believe Joey only has physical attack. Well, he can just make that Roaring Moon not very effective in this game.
And the unfortunate part is the Amoonguss is kind of scot-free here. There's Icy Wind able to deal a decent chunk of damage to it, but nothing else is going to be doing all too much, as Iron Hands will opt to hit the field one more time here. Knockoff going into that slot deals just a little bit of chip damage here, as Shadow Ball will be the move of choice into this Amoonguss. It deals a hefty amount of damage, but unfortunately does stay up as the Spore comes into the Flutter Mane. That is maybe worst case scenario.
Yeah, that's... At this point, I'm not sure what Joey can do to kind of claw his way back into the game. He has a choice spec, so he's definitely locked into that Shadow Ball.
But I do think the Shadow Ball was definitely his most optimal choice there. It doesn't really get much worse than that.
Yeah.
We are going to see this Landorus switch in one more time. That's going to bring this Roaring Moon to a whopping -3 here. Its attack stat in absolute shambles. The Intimidate onto the Flutter Mane not meaning all too much, as it is a Protect coming out of this Roaring Moon here. Unfortunately, this Flutter Mane will be taking its first mandatory turn of sleep as we move over to the Wild Charge from the Iron Hands, dealing a hefty chunk of damage there, bringing this Flutter Mane to just about nothing.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Joey should have attacked with his Roaring Moon instead of using Protect.
I think he was afraid of double sleep, which I totally respect. We do have the ability for Flutter Mane to wake up here, as it is on the second turn of sleep now. It has taken the mandatory turn. Breaking Swipe coming in is enough to chip out the Landorus here, as it is a knockout there and a -1 attack into that Iron Hands. We can hear the chanting, and unfortunately is not going to get the wake up from Flutter Mane there, no matter how much you demand from it. The Flutter Mane will fall, and you are now on to just your -3 Roaring Moon.
This Roaring Moon, I think, has stayed on the field since turn 1 of game 2. As you can see, Roaring Moon, it can be very... its longevity can be very... It can be felt. We do see that Amoonguss coming in with more HP due to its Regenerator ability, being able to restore 1/3 of its HP every time it switches out.
And this is such a tough decision, because obviously you can try to go for something like Breaking Swipe, make sure that you get the attack down. That'll be a -2 on that Iron Hands if you do go for it, but it is Knockout being the choice, dealing just a little chip of damage as Ice Punch goes into that Roaring Moon, deals a decent little chunk, and Pollen Puff feels terrible.
Yeah, Pollen Puff definitely does feel terrible. We see Joey with that forfeit, and unfortunately, we do see Haotian winning that match.
Yeah, that was a rough day on the street for that Roaring Moon there. Definitely not dealing a lot of damage towards the end of that game. There was just stat drops everywhere from every single Pokemon. I think Iron Hands hit -2 or 3 at one point. Landorus hit -2 at one point. Roaring Moon was at -3 in 2 different games. There was so many stat drops on every single Pokemon, except King Gambit. Maybe the one thing that wanted to have a stat drop on it. So
yeah.
Interesting to kind of see how those two were piloted. I really liked the use of the Amoonguss there. Just the mind games, and when you are going to Spore, aren't going to Spore. The Protect on that Arcanine Wake Up, I think, was a great call. And then the extreme speed into the Landorus. Unfortunately, just barely not enough to pick up the KO there. But well played, definitely by both trainers.
Definitely. Haotian, he's really like showing his resilience here and his patience in play. He looks like he always wants to kind of guarantee that win and will do anything it takes to do that, even if it takes like 10 turns. He's still willing to do that.
These are not games that are going to be ending in 5 turns. They're going to go for the long haul for the most part on them. But that is going to be the end of our round 5 of Swiss. That's the final round of Swiss. We're going to take a little bit of an elongated break as we get ready for Top Cut here. We'll see you all soon. And welcome
Yeah, start anytime.
back to the NorCal Midseason Showdown here at Kin Games in Hayward, California. My name is Ryan, joined again by Aaron, as we are here to bring you Top 8 of our wonderful tournament here. We have got a match between someone that was on stream recently and someone that has not seen it yet today. We've got AJ versus Haotian. A familiar look from what we've seen throughout the day. We just featured Haotian with the King Gambit, his wonderful ability to switch out the Amoonguss and the Landorus. And then we've got that Trick Room mode on the other side.
Yeah, AJ's team definitely has a lot of hard Trick Room options with like super offensive Pokemon in that Ursaluna and Torkoal, but does not necessarily have to play into that Trick Room mode with that Urshifu, and Iron Hands obviously can play in any mode, and she also has the Hearth Flame. That's Hearth Flame, right? Ogre Pawn.
Yes, Hearthflame Max.
Yeah, that one will do tons of damage even without Trick Room with Torkoal's Sun. Good thing to know is AJ's team does not have Intimidate.
There is no Intimidate on the other side, so the Defiant will not likely be procced. I don't even think if there's maybe an Icy Wind on this Cresselia. There is not. So there's no way to proc the Defiant on the other side. At least not that I can currently see. So no King Gambit shenanigans in quite the traditional sense, but there is quite a bit going on still. One of the things I really like about Cresselia personally, a lot of people see Cresselia as this like premier Trick Room setter. You get it out, you Trick Room, and then you can sustain up your, like maybe your Ursaluna through Trick Room, and it keeps healing with Lunar Blessing. But it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, Cresselia definitely has really strong support options in Helping Hand. Ally Switch is not very common, but still ran. But like, Cresselia can definitely keep your teammate alive.
Well, we are going to see just exactly how effective that may be as we get ready to go into Game 1 here at Top 8 at Kin Games in Hayward, California. It is the lead of the Volcarona and the Landorus into this Urshifu and the Hearth Flame Ogre Pond. That is a single strike Urshifu, it should be mentioned. This is not the normal water variant that we're used to seeing. Its attack will fall. However, most of the time when you're clicking those guaranteed crit moves, your attack falling isn't really the biggest concern in the world.
Yeah, that's what makes Urshifu so popular in this regulation right now. The fact that like Urshifu Water has Urshifu Rapid Strike has Surging Strikes, while Urshifu Single Strike has Wicked Blow. Both are guaranteed crits, so these attack drops, they just don't matter. And not to mention, they have the ability Unseen Fist, so anytime the opponent protects, it will go through that protect. As we see here, AJ does run her Urshifu Single Strike, and we see that the Volcarona switches out.
Volcarona will be switching out in favor of this Iron Hands here hitting the field. It is going to have a turn of Fake Out next turn, but before we get to that, we've got to worry about a little Terastallization on the side of AJ. It's going to be this Ogre Pond donning the Hearth Flame Mask, embodying the aspect of fire. This is going to be a lot of damage.
Yeah, definitely. That 1.5 attack boost, even with the Intimidate, now it has basically normal attack. I want to talk about that Iron Hand switch, though. It definitely is very positive matchup into that Urshifu. It's not going to be doing... That Urshifu is not going to be doing a lot of damage to that Iron Hands.
It is a U-turn coming out from that Lander, stealing a little bit of chip onto the Urshifu and sending Volcarona back out just in a different slot as it's a Wicked Blow into that slot. Volcarona takes it head on. Intimidate does nothing for a critical hit as it goes down to about a quarter of its HP left as Ivy Cudgel will be coming into this Iron Hand slot, dealing just over half HP. That is absolutely massive.
Yeah. People tend to forget how strong their Hearth Flame Ivy Cudgel Ogerpon is. We've been seeing a lot more Wellspring being more the popular Ogerpon variant, but if you want to be more aggressive, if you are playing into the Sun mode as AJ is, definitely Ogerpon Hearthflame still has its place in the meta.
It should be worth pointing out that there is no Protect on this Urshifu. It is a Choice Scarf variant, so no Protect is available for it. So it is susceptible to that fake out. It will be switching out on this turn in favor of the Cresselia hitting the field. Now, Ivy Cudgel coming out from the Ogerpon means no fake out is inbound, and it goes into that Iron Hands, no longer on the field.
I really do like that Cresselia pick. Cresselia coming in, it's not really threatened by anything. But now we see that Quiver Dance on the Volcarona, so now it might be threatened by those powerful Bug Buzz attacks.
Yeah, anytime a Volcarona can click Quiver Dance for free, it's generally feeling pretty good. It is worth mentioning that it is under half HP still, so it does have to contend with the fact that one hit will probably be enough to knock it out. Landorus hitting the field one more time does mean that the Intimidate drop will hit once more onto this Ogerpon. It's now at -2, even with the Embody aspect. That is a pretty large deficit.
It's
that
at
you have.
-1. And remember when...
Oh, it gets the
yes.
free boost, so it is at a natural -1 now.
Yeah, it's at a natural -1.
It gets increased stab as well. It gets so much when it Terastallizes.
I mean, that's why there was a lot of memes about Ogerpon in Sun doing with Ivy Cudgel being able to one-shot, Iron Hands, which is...
Speaking of Ogerpon in the Sun, the little turtle will hit the field, and Ogerpon is once again in that Sun. A U-turn from the Landorus does a little bit of chip to that Torkoal. Not enough to really make it sweat, but crucially is resetting that Intimidate one more time so it can do it once again. As Amoonguss hits the field in front of two fighting types, that Amoonguss is maybe a little scared.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Haotian was trying to call something here, but none of Haotian's Pokemon are really threatening AJ's side right now, and now we see that Ivy Cudgel boosted in the Sun, and what does it go into? Into the Volcarona, taking it out so easily.
Yeah, it makes it look like nothing. Critically, the Volcarona did get a Giga Drain off due to the Quiver Dance, making it a little bit faster the turn previously, but it was just a little bit of chip damage, and unfortunately not enough recovery to make too much of a difference. Once again, Landorus will be hitting the field, dropping Intimidate onto this Ogerpon. Now it's at -2. And the Torkoal moves to -1 in attack. So that's the last Intimidate of the game, but it's definitely maybe not seen the value that 4 Intimidates typically get.
Yeah, I definitely did not see the value. As we saw, this Hearthflame Ogerpon already has done so much damage onto Haotian's team. It's gotten 2 critical KOs. We do see that this Landorus is threatening AJ's team, but she pivots her her Pokemon into a Cresselia, which is not very threatened by any ground type moves due to its ability to levitate.
It's going to be a Terastallization coming from the side of Haotian onto this Landorus, donning the balloons, going into that Terra flying mode that we see so often for this Landorus. Spiky Shield coming out from the Ogerpon, making sure that it doesn't take any unnecessary damage, as it's going to be the Terra Blast into that slot, well read, as no damage will be transferred on that turn. This is a safety goggles Cresselia as well, so the Spore will not be doing anything as it goes into the Cresselia. That was beautifully played.
Yeah, definitely. I think AJ did read that Haotian wanted to get a Spore off, and using both Spiky Shield and having safety goggles on her Cresselia, it just made it so Spore was essentially useless. Like, what could they have done? It was a passive play that Haotian definitely could have been more offensive about, but he unfortunately chose the wrong Pokemon to attack.
I do like what Haotian did here, though, making sure that he locks into that Terraflying Terra Blast. It is a choiced Pokemon, and if you went into something like Stomping Tantrum to make sure that you take care of the Ogerpon, you can never hit this Cresselia, which would feel very bad. A Protect from the Amoonguss, as the Ogerpon is actually going to be switching out into this Urshifu Terra Blast, once more coming out, but this time it's targeting the Cresselia, dealing a decent little chunk of damage, leaving it just above half HP. Trick Room is the call, meaning the dimensions are twisted, and Amoonguss is the fastest thing on the field.
Yeah, I'm kind of iffy about that decision making, now that Amoonguss does have the power to be able to constantly be sporing, but Lunar Blessing does have that ability to removes conditions, right?
Lunar Blessing does remove conditions, in addition to the fact that ally switch is also a thing. If you just don't want to even deal with that, you could ally switch into the spore into your own safety goggles so that you're just kind of keeping safe there. That is also an option. But no, it's just going to be the spore going into that Urshifu, making sure that it goes to sleep here. But Lunar Blessing from Cresselia is going to give a little bit of healing back and make sure that that sleep was short-lived.
I think the single strike was Choice Scarf, right?
It is.
So I'm wondering, it is a slower Pokemon than the Choice Scarf Landorus here.
We did move second during the first turn as well, because Landorus got that U-turn and then Wicked Blow went into the Volcarona. But the Terra Blast is a critical hit this time going into the Cresselia, dealing a little bit more damage. It's still not enough to really, like, be that impactful, especially with these Lunar Blessings come out. It's probably got another 2 before it picks up the knockout there.
Yeah, I mean, this really goes to show how tanky Cresselia is and why it's such a premier Trick Room setter. But, I mean, at the same time, Cresselia has so much more modes that can run, not just Trick Room. As we see with AJ's Cresselia here, it also runs, let me see here, also runs Ally Switch, being able to kind of, like, keep its teammate alive and being able to take hits for itself.
And it is known that some Cresselias will run something like Icy Wind as well, but it's going to be the Amoonguss clicking Spore, making sure to redirect any of those attacks towards it. That's Rage Powder, you are correct. Making sure to redirect any attacks towards it, as it's just going to be another Lunar Blessing from this Cresselia, healing it back up. Wicked Blow into that Amoonguss. Half HP, little bit of Rocky Helmet chip, but I think you're probably fine with that, as the Terra Blast once more goes into the Cresselia.
I'm just wondering if Haotian keeps trying to read into that ally switch and is just not getting those reads. These Lunar Blessings is being able to keep AJ's Pokemon completely healthy. It's just like there's not a lot that Haotian can do right now. AJ seems to have like complete control of at least this match. She has speed control. She has, everything.
I'm a big fan of it's not over until it's over, but it's 4v2. The 2 on Haotian side are both under half. It's dire straits at the very least. It is interesting to see if the next one will be able to pick up the KO on this Cresselia, as it's a Pollen Puff going into the Landorus. My previous comment about under half HP is officially invalid. That Landorus is looking nice and healthy again, as Cresselia looks to do the same.
Yeah, I think that was really smart decision on Haotian's part to be able to keep that Landorus healthy. As we saw, it made sure that Landorus lived.
And this time the Terra Blast once more going into the Cresselia. It is not enough to pick up the KO after the Lunar Blessing heal once again. So Pollen Puff was critical there. There's no way that Landorus survives without it. But now I'm concerned that another Pollen Puff would not grant the same benefit. It could still be within the range of a Wicked Blow, and there's not really much that you can do about it unless you are Rage Powdering and kind of just sacrificing the Amoonguss there. In which case you're not healing and it's just going to happen again next turn.
I agree. There's not a lot. We do see that Pollen Puff again. Hopefully Haotian is betting on this Landorus being able to live on a damage roll.
It's a good amount of health going back onto the Landorus, as Lunar Blessing will once more be good onto this Cresselia. It brings it up to 93 HP as Wicked Blow goes into the Landorus. It is enough to pick up the KO, so the flying dog with the flying hat unfortunately will fall.
And don't you mean it'll be grounded? Just kidding. We do see the twisted dimensions go back to normal, and now Amoonguss is the slowest thing on the field.
That is maybe the worst possible time that Trick Room could have worn off, too.
Yeah.
We do see just the forfeit kind of coming in there. Not too much of a surprise. Once you had lost either the Amoonguss or the Landorus, I think it's kind of over from there, so I get where that one came from. But that was masterfully played by AJ in that game.
Yeah, AJ had all the correct reads, she had all the correct modes, she took full advantage of all the Trick Room turns, and, are we hoping to see it again?
I really do like the thought process of deciding to go into Trick Room knowing you're going to give Amoonguss priority on the field. It's going to be able to spore for free, but you also know it can't spore the Cresselia, and Cresselia can just wake up whatever does get spored. So kind of having the wherewithal to know, hey, I can afford to kind of give this Amoonguss any leeway that it wants, and it kind of doesn't matter, is just really, really smart decision making.
Yeah, AJ definitely read Haotian's win cons here, and he wanted to know that Haotian wanted to, start spreading sleep. We saw that spread and sleep in the last round of Swiss against Joey, and it worked wonders. That safety goggles, Cresselia with and protecting the Hearth Flame mask, Ogerpon, it just like you couldn't spore anything. The best that you could have done is maybe Pollen Puff your own Pokemon to heal it back up, but at that point, like she called out Haotian's win cons here and just negated it.
I wonder if there was ever a situation there, maybe earlier on in Trick Room terms, where you throw out a Pollen Puff into the Cresselia to deal just like a little bit of super effective damage and chip it a little bit closer into that Terra Blast range. That could have been an option. It's a little bit tricky when you have all of those heal ups coming out from the Lunar Blessing and kind of making a lot of your damage a little less relevant, but it is certainly something that you can think of in the future. Speaking of the future, it is upon us now as we get into game 2 here of our top 8 match. A similar looking lead, but not quite the same, as it is the Cresselia Ursaluna going up against this Landorus Fluttermane.
I think Haotian really wanted to kind of bring in immediate damage here, so we see the Fluttermane coming in with that Landorus, Choice Scarf Landorus, being able to do as much damage as possible.
Yeah, and I think this is a great position for it to be in as well. Obviously, Ursaluna is always kind of in a weird spot where it can't click the buttons it wants to immediately. It typically wants to wait a turn, and it wants to get its Flame Orb off, get the Guts boost. It is intimidated, but after Guts, a single Intimidate doesn't typically like ruin your day. So it's an interesting spot for it to find itself in, as it is going to be a terrestrialization early on here for AJ. The orb is going to fall on top of the Cresselia, going from a Psychic type into a Fairy type, making sure that it is negating its resistances, or its weaknesses to that U-turn that Landorus does have access to. And the U-turn does come out, doing just a little bit of chip damage, and Landorus will be going back.
That Fairy Terra also, more importantly, makes it neutral damage to Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball would probably, like in combination of U-turn and Shadow Ball, could have taken down that Cresselia, negating its Trick Room. AJ putting her defensive Terra up, ensuring that Trick Room goes up to make sure that Ursaluna starts to deal havoc onto Haotian's team.
It is going to be the Amoonguss coming out on the side of Haotian, as it is the Shadow Ball coming out from the Fluttermane, going into that Cresselia, dealing just a little under a quarter HP, but it does get a special defense drop. Earthquake coming out from the Ursaluna is a wonderful read. It normally wouldn't have been effective into the Landorus, but it does get to do a little bit of chip onto the Amoonguss as Trick Room is set, and Ursaluna gets to run the show.
Yeah, I feel like AJ knew that Haotian wanted to target that Cresselia and knew that Ursaluna might have been free to just attack. So that Ursaluna got a free Earthquake off, more importantly, chipping down that Fluttermane, chipping down that Amoonguss.
Yeah, it's a really, really smart play to be able to kind of know that what normally wouldn't be a very, like, safe move gets incredibly safe. They're not taking those passive turns that a Ursaluna normally would, but the Ursaluna is going to go ahead and retreat for now in favor of this Ogerpon Hearth Flame Mask. Fluttermane doing the same, go ahead and leave the field in favor of it. Looks like this may be that Landorus hitting the field once more. Importantly, Ogerpon, not Terra, is a grass type, so this quick spore in Trick Room unfortunately does not hit a mark.
Yeah, I feel like AJ has completely called out Haotian in these spores. She gets a single Moonblast off to that Landorus, dealing a little bit of damage, but AJ being able to call out these Haotian spores is like she's been just getting so much momentum in this. Like Haotian has so many turns that have been wasted in just trying to spore Pokemon that are just unable to be spored. With the safety goggles on Cresselia, the Cresselia is immune to it, and the Hearth Flame Ogerpon, before being Terra'd, has that grass typing, so it's also immune to it. They both have immunity to Rage Powder and can target. What was the other Pokemon on the field?
It is Landorus.
Landorus.
It is that funny funny flying dog, as Amoonguss is going to be leaving the field here in favor of this Iron Hands, making sure that it comes out and gets fake out pressure going pretty quickly here, but it is going to be a switch out on the other side as well. Cresselia in favor of the Torkoal in Trick Room, setting up the Sun for its Ogerpon partner. Ivy Cudgel is the call into this Iron Hands. In the Sun does a decent chunk of damage without the Terra, but U-Turn does get to do a decent chunk back, as once again the Intimidate cycle continues.
Yeah, I think Haotian is starting to stack up those Intimidates and has kind of a game plan to kind of slow things down, but this Torkoal is kind of thinking about breaking the door wide open. Not only has Trick Room up and it's probably going to go first through Eruptions, it's also boosting its partner's damage in the Ivy Cudgel.
Yeah, we didn't have the ability to see this Torkoal really thrive under Trick Room last time because it wasn't there while Trick Room was up. It kind of hit the field, it set the Sun, and then it went, okay, I've had fun, I'm going to leave now. This is the first time we've really gotten to see it under Trick Room, as it is going to be the Amoonguss coming in from the swap on Landorus. I would venture to say maybe it's not going to be here for too long. I wouldn't be surprised to see Landorus come back in again, but it does have the ability to put this Torkoal to sleep depending on where our speed tiers lie.
Yeah, definitely. People have undersped, work on underspeeding the Amoonguss against Torkoal. So in these Trick Room matchups, you can actually spore the Torkoal, but Torkoal also has an extremely low base speed as well, so we'll have to see here.
It's two Pokemon that you're so used to going first in Trick Room, but only one of them is allowed to go first in Trick Room this time. It is actually going to be the Torkoal going ahead and taking its leave in favor of the safety goggles. Cresselia making sure that no spores can hit the field once again, as Amoonguss is going to be heading on out of here in favor of that Landorus. Once again, the Intimidate coming down. This is a -2 on that Ogerpon.
I'm just wondering if Haotian is kind of starting to adjust to AJ's play here in regards to all of this sporing. Like, she knows that Haotian wants to spore, and then Haotian maybe adapts to not sporing.
It is the Ivy Cudgel coming out into the Landorus, dealing a decent chunk of damage. Definitely without the Intimidates, that would have been a surefire knockout, but it was not meant to be. As you can see through the little tooltip there, this is the last turn of Trick Room, but Cresselia is on the field and relatively healthy, so setting it again next turn is an option currently. Iron Hands is going to be the slowest thing on the field if Cresselia doesn't outspeed it, but it is the Drain Punch coming out from the Iron Hands, dealing a decent amount of damage into that Ogerpon, as a Lunar Blessing is sure to follow.
One thing that Iron Hands does have against this Cresselia is that Heavy Slam attack. It's super effective against Fairy types, so this Iron Hands is quite threatening and can potentially help win the game.
It is going to be the Ivy Cudgel going back into this Landorus. It is enough to get the KO there, as Landorus does fall, but now we run into that tricky situation. Like you said, there is a Heavy Slam that can be run against this Cresselia. If you want to set Trick Room again, you do have to kind of worry about that Heavy Slam coming out, but adversely, Follow Me on Ogerpon is a great way to kind of mitigate that damage going towards Cresselia. I'm unfortunately worried about how much damage that Ogerpon can take.
Yeah, now that Trick Room is gone, we do see that Fluttermane on the field going to be able to move first and deal a lot of damage if it gets something off. We do see... No, go.
It is going to be a bit of a tricky situation here. This is one of those moments where you just have to make a call and have to hope that the call that you're going for is right. It's not necessarily 50-50, but it kind of feels like it. You're either right or you're wrong. But if Trick Room gets back up at this stage in the game, it feels like it may be a little devastating, as it's going to be the Fluttermane switching out here as we are switching into the Amoonguss. Follow Me from the Ogerpon will be making sure to redirect any of those attacks, as it's going to be the Wild Charge coming out of this Iron Hands, and it is not enough to pick up the knockout either. Trick Room will go up, and Ogerpon is still alive as well.
We do see that Iron Hands is now one of the fastest Pokemon on the field with the ability to receive Pollen Puffs here. So this Iron Hands can be honestly very healthy and just start attacking. Haotian might be turning this game around. It may have taken quite a while, but he's getting there.
Yeah, the hard part is definitely how do you remove the Iron Hands. We talked a lot about Cresselia being very tanky, but Iron Hands is just as bulky on the other side. There is the Moonblast potential from this Cresselia, especially with the Terra Fairy boosting its damage, but it is going to be the Iron Hands deciding to take a leave here, as it's going to be switching back in for that Flutter Mane. Amoonguss is going to be the fastest thing on the field here naturally, but it can't Spore. So it might be a Pollen Puff into the Flutter Mane, making sure that it stays as healthy as possible.
Yeah, but I'm kind of wondering how much potential, how much influence that Pollen Puff will do if being doubled into with that in-sun IV Cudgel.
It is going to be the IV Cudgel coming out of this, but it's going to be going into the Amoonguss. It's not enough to get the KO, as Amoonguss will stick on the field for a little bit longer. My only issue now is with Iron Hands no longer on the field, this Cresselia is kind of free to do whatever it wants.
I think so, yeah. This Amoonguss is definitely on the back foot. It probably has to play defensive, but Haotian can make an aggressive play, assuming that AJ may think that.
There is always the potential for Pollen Puff to go into the Ogre Pond to pick up the KO, but then you have to worry about ally switch shenanigans, and anytime that move is available, you've got to be a little bit worried. And then you always have to just be worried about maybe if you click Lunar Blessing and it just survives. Or Spiky Shield Lunar Blessing is always an option as well. Or switching out your Amoonguss for an Iron Hands, also an option. So now we've got Flutter Mane Iron Hands on the side of Haotian, and he does get the Regenerator proc as well.
We do see a Terrestrialization finally coming out on Haotian's side.
It's going to be the Terra Fairy going on to that Flutter Mane, making sure to boost the Fairy type attacks that it loves to fire off, and I'm assuming we're going to see one soon. But first, a Follow Me coming out from this Ogre Pond, as we are going to be switching to this Cresselia. Moonblast boosted by the Terra Fairy, and it was a call into the Flutter Mane, not into that Iron Hands, which could have been a read from that Amoonguss switch, but a Dazzling Gleam instead from the other side. Follow Me does nothing against spread moves. It's only a little bit of chip on the Cresselia, but that is a wonderful call from the side of Haotian.
Yeah, as we saw, Cresselia take very little damage, because she itself does not really deal that much damage too. But we do see the sun coming out, and we do see Torkoal now being the slowest Pokemon.
This does boost the photosynthesis, or it does activate the photosynthesis on the side of Flutter Mane, but it gives it speed in a Trick Room environment, so maybe it's not the best thing in the world for it. There is the Iron Hands ability to survive as well. Even if Torkoal is going first, Iron Hands can still do devastating damage afterwards, so there may be a little bit of wiggle room for Haotian here, but it is actually just going to be a switch, getting Flutter Mane out of there and opting to go for the Amoonguss instead.
Yeah, we see the fake out smartly into the Torkoal, so it could not deal massive damage in the form of Eruption, but we do see the Lunar Blessing getting Torkoal back to max HP, making sure that Eruption base power is still at 150. Haotian is definitely trying to stall out these turns of Trick Room, and I think he's about to make it work.
I really, really like that play there from Haotian specifically, making sure to safely get your Amoonguss in. It's likely going to underspeed this Torkoal, so it can't be clicking Eruption for free, but it's actually just a protect here from the side of Amoonguss, making sure that it stays nice and safe, and the Eruption is going to be free. It obviously won't be hitting this Amoonguss, but it'll be dealing big damage into the Iron Hands, bringing it just into the red, as it's a Wild Charge coming from the Iron Hands into the Cresselia. Deals a little chunk of damage, but the recoil is good as well. Moonblast from the Cresselia will be enough to pick up that Iron Hands, leaving Haotian with just 2 Pokemon left.
Oh, so one big thing about this Iron Hands is it actually does not have Heavy Slam.
I was wondering if it did have Heavy Slam, why it wasn't the play there, but that does make sense. Heavy Slam is so common on Iron Hands at this point that I forget that you can put other moves in the team builder sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like I put Iron Hands in the team builder and then it just has 4 moves. I didn't put them there, but they're there.
And so AJ definitely has a strong positioning on the field, having that Eruption Torkoal threatening that Amoonguss there. But fortunately, Haotian does have that
It's going to be the Moonblast coming out of this Fluttermane. The Twisted Dimensions are gone, and so is the Cresselia. So there'll be no more Trick Room in this game here, as the Cresselia finally falls for the first time in these two games. And it's going to be the Spore. The Amoonguss is naturally faster.
Wow, so yeah, the Amoonguss being faster than the Torkoal manages to get the Spore off. This is going to be turn 1 of Sleep, but like this Torkoal is just unable to attack.
It is a little worrying because it did take the mandatory turn of Sleep because it's slower, and this Fluttermane isn't dealing too much like crazy damage to it. So it's a bit tricky on where exactly you place your damage here. If you are AJ here, you're down to 2 Pokemon as well, and they're both very slow without Trick Room, so it's not necessarily the position you would love to be in, but one of them is very hard for Fluttermane to remove.
Yeah.
And I would say that Torkoal would not have a problem removing the Fluttermane or the Amoonguss.
Haotian is definitely clawing his way back into this game, though.
Absolutely.
Like, we are seeing kind of light at the end of the tunnel, but
There's a chance.
there is a
There's
chance.
a chance. It's a sizable chance, as well as the Moonblast is going to be coming out of this Fluttermane. It'll go into the Ursaluna and deal a decent chunk of damage, as the Ursaluna will go into a Facade, hitting the Fluttermane and getting the knockout, and pivotally cannot get slept because of its Flame Orb. It is already burned only 1 status condition per Pokemon, as the Pollen Puff goes into this bear. It's not enough to get the knockout, as the Turtle wakes up Torkoal with the Eruption into this Amoonguss. It is plenty enough to get the knockout, and AJ advances to top 4.
AJ finally gets her revenge. In the past few PCs, she has actually managed to make the finalists against Haotian in our past PC. Unfortunately, that was not recorded because I forgot to, do the transition here. But now that we have Ryan here, he's able to, do the stream transition. So to AJ's partner, we got this recorded.
You're welcome. But a wonderful match from both players, admittedly. I admit during the beginning stages of that second game, I kind of was like, oh, we're just going to see more of the same and kind of just see this Cresselia take the world over. But it was wonderfully played by Haotian to make sure that they clawed themselves back and gave themselves a wonderful opportunity, getting the Amoonguss in safely with the fake out on the Torkoal. Somehow knowing that your Amoonguss was slower, I was so sure that Amoonguss was going to be slower in Trick Room still. I don't know why, but it was faster, and then you get the Spore off afterwards. So
I think,
wonderfully played.
I think AJ and being able to read all those spores, like, it's just standard play. She played very safe and managed to just not ever be spored. Though I did like seeing Haotian's adaptation into oh, that's her thought process. Maybe I can deal more damage. Then we saw that really close game too. But congratulations to AJ to advancing to top 4.
Congratulations on advancing to top 4. And while we wait for other matches in top 8 to conclude, we will be right back with top 4. Don't go anywhere. Hello and welcome back to the NorCal VGC Mid-Season Showdown here at Kin Games in Hayward, California. My name is Ryan, joined here by Zac for our top 4 matchup here. It's a little bit of a rubber match from what we have been told here. We have got Andrew against Ben. We did feature Ben on stream earlier with that Landorus Incarnate. I got the correct sprite this time, so it is obvious that it is Landorus Incarnate.
The one that is not intimidating.
The one that is not intimidating, but it should be intimidating after what it did earlier. It was absolutely brutal. But on the other end, we do have Andrew here running an Iron Hands Heatran, Ogerpon Wellspring Fluttermane, Landorus Therian, and a Urshifu single strike.
It's going to be this dark Urshifu, not doubling up on the water types here. So a pretty balanced sort of team from Andrew, with the Indeedee Armouge pairing that Ben is rocking here on this more balanced style team. One of the big things that Ben's going to have to worry about is that Heatran and dark Urshifu make Indeedee Armouge's life really difficult.
Yeah, it absolutely does. But now that I've thought about it, and you've mentioned not doubling up on water types, could you run Urshifu Rapid and Ogerpon and just side Aqua Jet
Yeah.
and just heal yourself?
Well, I was in just the top 8, not to brag, but I lost to in Water Urshifu and Water Ogerpon.
And there it is.
So you definitely can do that. It is very strong, like especially Tornado sets up a Rain Dance, Water Boost or Rain Boosted Ivy Cudgels and Surging Strikes. Yeah, those do a ton of damage here.
But that is not what we have in
Yeah.
this game specifically.
I don't think
It is
any
gonna be
rain
the-
is going to be on the field for
Yes.
either of these. Doesn't look like it.
But I am
Rain Dance
interest-
Ogerpon.
I am interested to kind of see where the Psy spam comes out in this one, if we're going to see it at all. Like you were saying, you don't really want to see Heatran and Single Strike Urshifu into anything like that. So maybe it kind of gets left by the wayside, but adversely, I do think this Incarnate Landorus has a lot of ability to kind of pop off. In this match specifically, it's going to look really, really good into quite a few things, but we're not going to have to wait very long to see what it's good into as we get into game 1 of our top 4 matchup here in Hayward. It's going to be the Urshifu Iron Hands on the side of Andrew and the Fluttermane and the Landorus Incarnate. I'm sorry, their names threw me for a second.
Yeah, Fluttermane and Landorus. So the Iron Hands and Urshifu combo, kind of a tried and tested pairing of Fake Out plus Urshifu, is really, really annoying. So Ben does have, of course, the Indeedee to potentially switch in and block that Fake Out, but it would have to be for the Landorus, or the Landorus would have to Terra, because otherwise it's not touching the ground, so it would not benefit from that priority move prevention here. The Focus Sash on this Urshifu is going to mean that Fluttermane can't just toss a Dazzling Gleam that way and remove it from the field right out the gate. So it's going to be a little bit of a tricky position here. A lot of damage is being threatened on both sides, so we'll see where the damage is going to be falling here.
It's going to be a Terastallization early here on turn 1 as the Terra Orb hovers over the Fluttermane, going Terra Fairy, making sure to boost up the Fairy type damage that it is oh so known for dishing out. It is going to actually be a response Terastallization on the other side. Andrew getting thoughts of his own about tearing that Urshifu away from its dark fighting just into pure dark type, making sure that it boosts up any wicked blows that it may be throwing out. And it is important to know that this Dazzling Gleam is not 4 times super effective and is only 2 times super effective
You
now.
couldn't tell by the
Brings it to stash anyway, but
Iron Hands gets a huge chunk taken out of it, below half. The follow-up Earth Power will quickly take out this Iron Hand, so a KO is taken here. Urshifu is brought down to Saturn, and this Landorus is importantly faster than this Urshifu. That's incredibly useful information. The Wicked Blow is going to be finding its mark into the Landorus, but the bulk on this Landorus is going to survive. 3 health, that's huge here.
3 health and a dream. It's the invisible focus sash. It's not quite 1 HP, but it
3
might
times better than that.
It's 3 times better than 1 HP. It might as well be 1 HP though, but it is so critical to know now that this Landorus is going to be moving faster than the Urshifu. A lot of these Urshifus will tend to run something like Choice Scarf to make sure that they do get the outspeed in that situation, and it kind of goes against you in this spot. Heatran coming out for Andrew is in a bit of a wary spot here. It does have to contend with these Earth Powers on the side of this Landorus, and there is no ability for it to Terra away from it now that we have seen this Terra Dark used on Urshifu.
That's true, but the one thing that this Urshifu does have is Sucker Punch to sort of pin the Landorus. There's no way to stop a Sucker Punch other than like switching out or protecting with this Landorus. The Substitute is definitely off the table with only 3 health. And so a Sucker Punch does sort of keep Heatran safe. Andrew knows that the Fluttermane is locked into that Dazzling Gleam, but seems like we've got to read here. The Dazzling Gleam does go off. Urshifu actually detected instead of that Sucker Punch. So this Dazzling Gleam is going to do peanuts to this Heatran here. Yeah, Heatran's pretty comfortable with that. But this follow-up Earth Power from the Landorus, that's another KO here. And Ben is off to the races. 2 KOs, 2 turns. And this Urshifu's at 1 health. Like, that KO's coming pretty soon.
It's a KO and a half.
Yeah.
It's such a weird kind of position to be in there, because you obviously want to be able to go for those sucker punches, but you have to respect the fact that A, Indeedee exists, and B, just switching in general exists, and you could potentially waste your turn, lose the Urshifu for nothing. I like the idea of going for the protect later, there.
Right?
Yeah, I really do like the idea of going for the protect there, just unfortunately sticking to your guns on Ben's side and just deciding I'm going to do damage and I'm going to do damage quickly pays off.
Yeah. He called it. So Ogerpon is forced out here, and yeah, Landorus can now leave the field. It's done its job here. Fluttermane can once again go for a Dazzling Gleam. It's locked into that, and Grimmsnarl going to be hitting the field here. Urshifu does go for the Sucker Punch, but it's too little too late. Grimmsnarl taking its place, and this Dazzling Gleam getting another KO onto this Urshifu, and it's just this, oh gosh, that did a lot. That was a critical hit onto Ogerpon.
That felt mean.
That is insult to injury here. That is huge damage, and at this point, Grimmsnarl could pick up the final KO here. The Ogerpon going for the Ivy Cudgel, slamming into that Fluttermane. A crit for a crit here, but with the lead that Ben has accumulated so far, I think that's, Andrew's kind of like, man, you couldn't could you do that like in game 2, please? That'd be nice.
Yeah, maybe save that crit for another time. It does kind of give you a good baseline of, this Ogerpon does have the ability to get those big one-hit KOs if it needs to. You understand that a critical is enough to do it. Sometimes with bulkier Pokemon, even the critical hit won't get that one-hit KO. I think against a Fluttermane, it's a little less surprising. A crit's normally going to knock you out. But regardless, any information you can glean from this first game is still valuable. Sucker Punch coming out of that Grimmsnarl is going to be enough to pick up the KO there as Ogerpon falls, and it is a decisive Game 1 victory here for Ben.
Yep, Grimmsnarl just kind of showed up and got one Sucker Punch off, and that was kind of all it needed to do. The work done by that Fluttermane and that Landorus was absolutely massive. As it turns out, Fairy and Ground moves at the same time. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
I think Grimmsnarl was the true GOAT there. It used one move, it got one knockout.
Yeah, the Sucker Punch did lock up that game very comfortably, and Ben didn't even show his final Pokemon, so Andrew doesn't even know what that last Pokemon to prepare for was in this particular case. So, yeah, Ben that just went almost as well as it possibly could have.
Yeah, and there is something to say about, you look at the crit on Ogerpon and think maybe I probably could have wanted that a little more in game 2. Maybe in a more winnable situation, but information is such a huge part. Even though we are open team sheet now, in both players get the team sheet for their opponents, knowing what they brought to those games can still be super, super valuable. So the
it's one of the few pieces of information left that you can glean, other than speed tiers and obviously the training of your Pokemon being important there. So these two players have played before, so this is it might be a little weird, some of the plays that we're seeing from them, but Ben lost the last time that these two faced in Swiss here, so getting pretty swift vengeance in that game 1. So we'll have to see if he can make a repeat performance in game 2 as he's figuring out what Pokemon to bring. It's not too surprising we did not see at least the Indeedee or Armarouge hit the field, right? That Heatran and the Terra Dark Urshifu make those pretty difficult Pokemon to get a lot of mileage out of, consistently at least. But Indeedee Armarouge, when you are least prepared for it, can definitely take some KOs.
Yeah, I think it might be safe to say, regardless, we're probably not going to see the Indeedee Armarouge again. I think it's really just too risky. You do have a game to play with it, though. You can lose this game, and you can go on to still win game 3 and win the set. Whether or not you want to roll those dice is totally up to you, but
might be a little risky, but Ben might feel like he needs to take those risks. We'll have to see.
We will see what risks are taken here in game 2 of our top 4 matchup here. It's going to be the Ogerpon and the Iron Hands here to start it. And we've got the same lead from Ben. It is going to be the Fluttermane and the Landorus Incarnate coming out swinging. So I really like the adjustment here, deciding to go for the Ogerpon, leaving Urshifu on the bench. You can still bring it later if you need to. But I think Ogerpon is much more suited to this matchup.
Yeah, Ogerpon is a very important Pokemon that can do a lot of damage, right? It obviously can threaten this Landorus, potentially outspeeding this Landorus as well. The one awkward part is that this Landorus can go for something like that Sludge Bomb into the Ogerpon, so it kind of encourages Andrew to terastallize that Ogerpon, but we see that Ben does have his own Ogerpon in the back, so that would leave it open to a super effective Horn Leech. And these Iron Hands also threatening some Fake Out pressure onto Landorus here, but we see Ben's making a little bit of a read here.
A little bit of a read, as it's going to be the Terastallization coming out just like game 1. Game 2 leads the same. Terra Fairy falling down onto that Fluttermane, making sure that its Fairy type moves are absolutely devastating. It is going to be the response Terastallization coming on the side of Andrew. This time it's going to be the Iron Hands donning a hat. It'll be going Terra Grass, which I think is a wonderful choice in front of this Landorus. If it clicks the Earth Power that it had clicked last time, that was what got the KO on the Iron Hands to begin with. But first, we've got a Dazzling Gleam to deal with. It's a good amount of damage, bringing that Ogerpon just under half HP as Ivy Cudgel runs into that Landorus and gets the one-hit knockout.
There we go. So swift KO here. We'll see what the Iron Hands is going to follow up with. It's going to be that Heavy Slam, and that is yet another KO here. So we're off to the races with both of these games. Very quick knockouts here. Andrew taking a 4-0 lead, or 4-2 lead. 2 Pokemon left in the back for Ben here. Going to be forced to bring out the Grimmsnarl and the Ogerpon here. That Dazzling Gleam did a lot of damage though, but the Terra is spent, and Ben only has these 2 Pokemon to claw back this game 2. Else there's a game 3.
Do we have like somewhere to be? Is there a reason that we're just like,
I don't know,
put
man.
the Pokemon on the field, get them off the field, we gotta go?
Yeah, just get in, get out, Terra for damage, get it done. Like, yeah, that read from Ben of going for he went for the substitute on that Landers did not quite pay off. Andrew just sort of playing it straight, just being like, all right, I'm just gonna click the super effective moves.
And also the Ogerpon is outspeeding Landorus, which is very, very key to know as
Super
well.
important information.
We talked about the information that you can glean out of a game. That's one of the things that you can still get out of this, knowing, hey, my Ogerpon is faster, so if we end up in a game 3 situation, I have a very, very strong move that I can easily pivot into here. It's going to be the Spiky Shield on Andrew's Ogerpon, making sure to keep itself nice and safe here, as Reflect from the Grimmsnarl, once again, making sure to keep its team nice and safe, making sure physical moves deal a little bit less. Horn Leech into the Ogerpon, unfortunately, not going to find its mark.
Yep, Ogerpon taking a little bit of chip damage from that Spiky Shield, and the Heavy Slam from Iron Hands doing a huge chunk to that Grimmsnarl, bringing it very low. That Reflect being super impactful there, but Grimmsnarl, one of the slower Pokemon on the field, the slowest, I think. Well, maybe Iron Hands is slower though. We'll see. But yeah, Grimmsnarl is probably not going to be able to get too much done here, so Ogerpon might just have to solo this whole game, but Andrew still has all 4 Pokemon, so he's got a lot of room to work with, and is going to be sending out that Heatran, which will be able to take a Horn Leech very comfortably.
It's actually going to be the Follow Me coming from the Ogerpon on Ben's side of the field, as Sucker Punch will be coming out. It was supposed to be into that Ogerpon slot, but unfortunately it had switched into the Heatran. Drain Punch is good into the Ogerpon, dealing a little under a quarter HP. Not enough to really matter too much, but a little bit of healing there, a little bit of damage there, can't hurt.
Yep, the Follow Me from the Ogerpon redirecting that. So Grimmsnarl does stick around for 1 turn longer here, but it's going to be hard to muscle through this Heatran. Of course, the Ivy Cudgel would be able to do pretty nice damage to that, but there's always the sneaking suspicion of, wow, an Ogerpon could switch in here and just activate that Water Absorb, take literally negative damage from it. So Andrew has all the tools in the world to sort of close this out as he sees fit.
And that really feels like something that couldn't be afforded, but it's not going to happen. It's just going to be the Ivy Cudgel coming out of that Ogerpon, dealing super effective damage into the Heatran and making sure to get that one-hit knockout as Spirit Break comes from the Grimmsnarl. Deals a little bit of chip onto that Iron Hands and gets a special attack drop. Doesn't matter too much to the physical attacker, but a Drain Punch is enough to get the Revenge KO onto that Grimmsnarl. It is Ogerpon against the world.
Yep, and the world is a Terragrass Iron Hands, which... not something Ogerpon Wellspring enjoys facing terribly.
That's a beefy world.
Yes. And we haven't even seen the Fluttermane, also part of this world. This Fluttermane is carrying the Choice Spec, so has very little reason to not lock into Moonblast here, but this Ogerpon could, of course, retaliate with something like the Horn Leech or the Ivy Cudgel. We'll have to see how much this Moonblast actually does. Yeah, the Ogerpon, after the chip damage, is going to get felled there, so it's 1-1. We have a series.
This
We're
might
back.
be the first game 3 we've had on stream today.
I mean, I haven't been. I've been playing, so
every stream game except for like maybe one has gone. I think actually yours in round 1.
No, I won 2-0.
You won 2-0?
I think I won 2. I thought I won 2.
One of them went to game
Something
3,
went to,
maybe,
probably.
but this might be the rare game 3 that we really haven't gotten to see all too much today. It's interesting to kind of see how the adjustments peel out as these matches progress. You obviously could see just a wonderful adjustment on turn 1 from Andrew there, knowing, hey, you know, I kind of got caught out Iron Hands went down turn 1. It kind of just like spiraled down from there. I can Terra Grass the Iron Hands, and I can get 2 Revenge KOs on to like kind of make up for it. That really just spirals so hard from there. It's so hard to recover from that 4-2 deficit. So I'm interested to see now that Andrew has recovered. What is Ben's recovery plan?
Yeah, we'll have to see. The one very important piece of information I think Ben might be thinking about in this moment is we did not see the Urshifu on Andrew's side. This is the one thing that takes literally 0 damage from this expanding force. So Ben might be thinking, is now the time to sort of do it? Is now the time to go with Indeedee Armor? Yeah, do you click the go button? Of course, Heat Train is still a problem, but we saw Ogerpon had no problems removing that from the field. So might be the time to go for that. It's definitely a risky decision because that might just be a bait from Andrew. He could definitely bring the Urshifu once again. We'll have to see.
Yeah, it's definitely risky, and it is, important to know that Andrew could have brought the Ogerpon as the last Mon there instead of bringing black out that Flutter Mane, but because you did, you revealed, hey, I was willing to not bring Urshifu at all, and I won doing it. So maybe it's a little bit more tempting to do that as well, but we'll have to see what happens. As we've got a similar lead coming from Andrew here. We've got the Iron Hands and the Ogerpon, and a mirror on the other side. It's the Flutter Mane and the Landorus Incarnate. Familiar territory we have found ourselves in.
Yep, and these 2 pretty bulky Pokemon, especially this Iron Hands with the Assault Vest. One of the few things that can, especially when it terastallizes into that Grass type, does not have to fear the strong fairy moves plus strong ground moves combination. We saw the Landorus got a little bit cheeky last time, tried to go for a substitute, but Ogerpon swiftly put that to an end. So I don't know we're not sure what's going to happen, but I would be very, very shocked if Ben went for the exact same play.
I would assume we're probably not going to see the exact same. I'd be concerned if we saw the exact same setup. It's actually going to be the Flutter Mane deciding to leave the field. It does not want to be felled by that Heavy Slam, as Ogerpon will be making its entrance into the field. It is going to be a turn 1 terastallization from Andrew, something we have seen in all 3 games so far. And it's actually going to be the Ogerpon going for the terastallization, and Body Aspect on the Wellspring Mask, a stage in its special defense, and a little bit of boost to the damage on its water moves. That is a interesting call, and feels a little bad having a Ogerpon with Horn Leech switch in front of it.
Yeah, so Ben getting kind of the better end of that, baiting out the Terra that he would probably prefer to see, right? In the Ogre, we see the Ivy Cudgel, Terra Water goes into that Landorus to protect. Heavy Slam from the Landorus goes into the Ogerpon. Ogerpon takes that much better than that Flutter Mane did. And so now we're going to see, the Ogerpon terastallization makes a lot of sense in front of 2 very specially offensive Pokemon, Landorus and that Flutter Mane, getting that special defense boost. That feels pretty good. But now opening yourself up to a Horn Leech weakness is not the best thing in the world, and that means this Ogerpon's gonna have to play a little bit more defensively or risk getting taken, drained of its health and healing Ben's Ogerpon here, and that might leave the Landorus open for going for a Earth Power into the Iron Hands, which it loves doing.
I think that really was just a brilliant play from Ben there, knowing, hey, this didn't work last time. Let's see if we can adjust it and get the Ogerpon on the field. And that Ogerpon is going to be using a follow me. The Ogerpon forces the Ivy Cudgel into it, which means that the heavy, the Earth Power. Okay, a critical hit.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so critical hit.
Landorus normally survives that, but that critical hit is huge. Getting a one-hit KO on Iron Hands is not very common.
Like, I get it. It's sheer force. It's Life Orb. It's going to be doing a ton of extra damage. But, I think without the critical hit, Iron Hands still probably survives that with minimal health. Yeah, it survives.
It's definitely in the yellow, but it'll survive that. But that does open the door for the Choice Specs Flutter Mane on Andrew's side to hit the field there. Yeah, that follow me was perfect. They're definitely getting the better end of Andrew there. Andrew's thinking, okay, well, you're probably going to go for the Horn Leech. It's kind of the obvious thing of I'm a water type, you want to heal for me. Ben getting healing. He's back up to full health on the Ogerpon. Okay, almost.
he's got the health difference that Landorus had in game 1. It's that 3 HP.
That magic 3 health.
That's where it went.
That's where. And he gets a free KO out of that. So this Flutter Mane now is looking to put in a bit of a shift here. But yeah, Ben still has a lot of room to move here. Hasn't really taken 3 damage so far out of this, and baited out a Terra and gotten a single KO, gotten 1 KO from that critical hit Earth Power. But we're going to see two Ogerpon are going to be terastallizing here, both carrying the Wellspring Mask.
That's an interesting choice, considering we've been talking about how dangerous the Hornleech can be when you kind of remove that grass type and make yourself purely weak to it. But you do want the special defense in order to take the damage from that. But it is going to be the Hornleech back into it first. Andrew's Ogerpon moving just a little bit faster. It's 2 crits in a row. There was no chance for this Ogerpon to make any sort of move. That is so unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a huge swing here. We got a discount on crits. They've got them in bulk this time, so no crit on this one. So the Earth Power. So Ogerpon will be surviving here. But now Ben has the opportunity to send either his Fluttermane or the Indeedee out here. Indeedee would definitely help keep this Landorus around a little bit longer, but we saw how much that Dazzling Gleam did over half to Landorus. So one more would potentially get the KO. So the Follow Me not going to be super helpful, so it kind of has to be this Fluttermane, right?
I do think it's a little curious that maybe you didn't go for like Sludge Bomb into the Fluttermane slot there to try and like maybe you get the Oko on it if the Sludge Bomb connects. I understand the Earth Power into there because I think you were expecting Ogerpon to survive that turn, and I think Ogerpon was targeting down the Fluttermane, but it's still kind of just that turn didn't feel as good as maybe you had wanted. The Landorus got to move, which was good, but it didn't get to like really emit a ton of value off of its move. Half HP on the Ogerpon that can still be healed up by Hornleech.
Yeah.
Feels maybe a little bad.
Yeah, this is still a rocky position for I think both of our players here. This Ogerpon is at half health, so maybe a Fluttermane Moonblast would be able to pick up the knockout. We'll have to see. Lander is still a pretty important Pokemon. Ben getting pretty much no value out of the Terastallization. That timely double crit being absolutely disastrous here. Indeedee is revealed to Andrew as the 4th and final Pokemon, switching in for that Landorus here. Battlefield got weird. The Follow Me going out from this Ogerpon. So at least no Terra Water Ivy Cudgels are coming out this turn, just a Dazzling Gleam from the Choice Specs Fluttermane. And Andrews is faster here. Another critical hit on this Indeedee. These crits have been huge in this game, but the Moonblast lock-in does KO the Ogerpon, so both Ogerpons have been felled, and we're now down to Andrew's final 2 Pokemon. Ben still has 3, and this Dazzling Gleam, maybe Indeedee can survive another one. We'll have to see, but Heatran, that is just an Earth Power away from a KO here, so I think both players can taste a victory here. This is coming down to the wire.
This is such a tricky spot. You do have the ability to Follow Me on the Indeedee, but obviously it's locked into a Dazzling Gleam on the other side. So the Follow Me is not really going to give you as much value as you maybe had wanted. That being said, I think if you can take down this Fluttermane this turn, you've got a pretty good shot at being able to kind of just like roll through the rest of this game with Landorus. We obviously know the Earth Power is going to be plenty enough to get rid of that Heatran. My issue, I don't think Moonblast is going to be enough.
Yeah, we will have to see. Maybe this Indeedee with the follow-up with Psychic could get there, but we're going to see the Dazzling Gleam. Indeedee does get KO'd there, that crit being huge from before, so Indeedee probably would have survived 2 of those otherwise. But the follow-up Moonblast, how much does this do? It does over half. That's a lot of damage, and Heatran actually setting up a substitute here. But looks like the Dazzling Gleam might just clear the field at this point. Ben looking for something like a special attack drop from Moonblast or a critical hit, dare I say it.
That substitute is absolutely huge.
Yeah, this just locks up the game, makes it even safer, because now this Landorus, it just has to survive the Dazzling Gleam, and even still, like the follow-up attack from this Heatran probably going to get there. It does have to go for Heat Wave, though. And Heat Wave doesn't hit all the time.
Is that its only attack?
That's the only move that can hit Landorus, because Landorus is a flying type, so Earth Power not going to be in the cards here. So we're going to see the Landorus go for Protect. Fluttermane must go for this Dazzling Gleam. Does go for it. Thuds into that Protect, and that's going to be the KO onto Ben's Fluttermane here. It's all on Landorus.
It's all on Landorus, and I'm hesitant to believe that it's going to be able to survive a Dazzling Gleam from this Fluttermane. It's on dwindling health. It's certainly possible. I think if it is, it's coming down to a roll. But you really just, I think in that situation, I understand why you go for the Protect, but I think you just kind of have to go for it. I think you hedge your bets and you maybe just go for the Earth Power, but unfortunately it would not have mattered. The Dazzling Gleam is enough and picks up the KO on the Landorus, and that is going to be the set on that one. That is a 2-1 win.
Very close.
Very close.
Very hard fought. Those crits in game 3 were absolutely massive. I think each one of those crits was super impactful for Andrew, but gave him the opportunity. He was throwing out those attacks, right? The more attacks you throw, the more likely you are going to get a critical hit that can just blow the game wide open. That crit on Ndidi with the Dazzling Gleam.
That crit on Ndidi probably changed everything.
Yeah, the Ogerpon didn't get to play the game much because it just got crit into the dirt.
And it was in such a good position, too.
Yeah.
When you made such a good call to put out the Ogerpon, you had called the Terra correctly. You started the next turn by calling the Ivy Cudgel correctly, even though you had the ability for the Horn Leech. And then it just got bullied.
Yeah.
It just got bullied by a Fluttermane. That was
like, this
crazy.
This is great. I love this. It was doing great, and then just got absolutely steamrolled by those double crits. That was brutal to see, but man, still very well played to Andrew, playing to his outs incredibly well there, and proving how difficult this team can be to play against. Again, we did not see the Urshifu again, but it was still enough of a to dissuade Ben from going for that Ndidi Armarouge mode. And the sub on Heatran ended up being like the final
Very
nail in
big.
the coffin.
Yep.
Solidified the win there.
That is going to be all the time that we have for round top 4. Round
Top 4.
2 of top cut round. It's
Top 4. Top 4.
That's all the time that we have for this one, as we are going to wait up for our last top 4 match to end, and then we will be right back with the finals here. It'll be just a moment. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to the NorCal VGC Mid-Season Showdown here at King Games in Hayward, California. My name is Ryan, joined here by Ben, and this is our finals for today's tournament. We have got a great match ahead of us. Obviously, we just saw Andrew advance into the finals. AJ, who was in our top 8 stream match, has also advanced to the finals, and they will meet here. It is Trick Room against this balance form with a Heatran.
Yeah, I can speak from personal experience. These are both very good players. I've lost to both of them just this weekend. I think well, it sounds like there might have been a disconnect very briefly, but that's okay because we haven't quite started yet. We've got a little bit more time to talk about the actual match.
Yeah, just a little bit of a disconnect between the two players as we are waiting for this game to go in. We will take a quick moment to wait to talk about this matchup, just because we want to wait until our players have their headphones on fully and can't hear us. We don't want to give any spoilers or insight. So instead, let's go ahead and just talk about, consider this an interview. We'll talk about your top 4 match that we just got to see with that that Landorus. Go ahead and I just want to hear about the Landorus. Why is it here?
Landorus is here. I feel like I shouldn't be here to do an interview for a game I lost.
No,
but
it's fine.
That's where we're at right now. Landorus is really good. Let me substantiate that a little bit. It hits really hard, and Terra Poison is a very good Terra type for it because it allows you to, well, obviously you resist the common Fluttermane fairy hits. You then gain stab on your sludge bombs, and sheer force life orbs stab sludge bomb does a lot of damage, and it means grass types can't freely switch into your earth powers because they're still threatened by the sludge bomb. And even if you don't terastallize, you can still one-shot opposing Ogerpon if they don't Terra to get out of the grass type.
So we're not supposed to, as commentators, we're not supposed to be biased. But let's go ahead and be biased. Let's make
We're all
predictions.
biased.
Let's make some predictions here. You've played against both of these players over the past 48 hours.
Yes, sir.
Who do you think is coming away the champion here?
I think it very strongly depends on how AJ is able to utilize the Trick Room at her disposal. She's got Cresselia, and Cresselia, very annoying to get rid of if you can't hit it super effectively, which can be difficult to do sometimes.
So it will come down to that Trick Room as we had mentioned earlier. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at the two teams now that we have got our trainers situated and ready to go here. We do have that Cresselia. We also have the Iron Hands and Ursaluna, Torkoal, Urshifu, that is a Rapid, I believe. That's a single strike Urshifu, and the Hearthflame Mask Ogerpon. And on the other side, we have got the Iron Hands, the Heatran, the Ogerpon Wellspring, Fluttermane, Landorus, Therian, and the single strike Urshifu as well. So in a world dominated with what feels like every team having that Rapid Strike Urshifu, we've got the two single strikes duking it out.
Yeah, double single strike, which I guess we can call that double strike Urshifu in finals. The couple of things to note here: how the Ogerpon matchup is going to be important. I would give a slight edge to the Hearthflame. Well, actually, I was going to say I give a slight edge to Hearthflame just because it has the weather on its side with Torkoal and the Sun, but Heatran is on the other side with Flashfire, and you can't Terrastallize so hastily, otherwise you just can't hit Heatran, and this Heatran is Terra Grass, so you really want to be careful about Terrastallizing Ogerpon.
This really does seem like the perfect matchup. You have, where you would originally say the Hearthflame Mask is a little bit better here because of weather. You've got the counter and a Flashfire Heatran, which is countered by the Mold Breaker on Ogerpon, which, if you're not Terrastallizing, is something that, doesn't do as well into like Fluttermane. It can take a little bit more of a threat from it. Iron Hands is just kind of annoying in general here. But then you have things like the Ursaluna, which can just do a ton of ground type damage and knock out the Iron Hands. So there's so many checks just on both sides. It really is going to just be the ultimate chess match between these two.
There are definitely a lot of different moving parts here. Even the Urshifu, we should briefly discuss. AJ's Urshifu is actually that Choice Scarf variant. Andrew running the Focus Sash, so Andrew is going to have a little bit of built-in security, knowing that Urshifu can take at least one hit, bare minimum. Doesn't have to worry about surging strikes from the opposing Urshifu, just the single strike.
But it does have to worry about the fact that it is going to be naturally slower in the matchup, which can be a little bit beneficial if Trick Room becomes a very prevalent thing. But most of the time when you run these Trick Room comps, you're not really worried about like, oh, I'm going to really focus on my Urshifu needs to be the star of this show. You're typically looking at other things to be your star. But it is still a factor where if in Trick Room these Urshifus end up dueling each other down, oddly enough, AJ's is the one with the disadvantage.
Yeah, the last thing you want is your Choice Scarf Pokemon in Trick Room. Everybody knows that, but if AJ does lead off with the Urshifu, then it's going to be in a very strong position, unless it is faked out by the opposing Iron Hands. That's pretty much the only way to stop it. Although the Landorus, I believe, is also Choice Scarf.
It is.
On the side of, yes, the Landorus is also Choice Scarf, and with the Flying Terra Blast, does threaten a lot of damage, or even if they are able to call the Terra Dart on the Urshifu and nail the super effective U-turn, that will do a lot of damage too.
Yeah, you put it best earlier when you had said there's just a lot of moving parts in this matchup. There's so many things that can change. There's so many things that could go wrong one way or another. There really is no way to go, oh, this is a clear benefit to this one person. It really could go either way, but we'll see which way it goes right now as we get into game one of our finals here in Hayward. It's going to be the Iron Hands Fluttermane on Andrew's side and the Hearthflame Ogerpon and Cresselia for AJ.
I would give this initial lead matchup, I would say the benefit is more on AJ's side. AJ's commanding more offensive presence, I believe. If Fluttermane wants to lock into the Shadow Ball, Cresselia could very easily Terrastallize to the Fairy type, and then it will not be so bothered by that. Iron Hands does carry the...
have Heavy Slam on
it.
Yes.
Yes.
Which we saw that earlier in AJ's top 8. There was no Heavy Slam on the Iron Hand, so it did kind of get the ability to just Terra Fairy freely, and there wasn't that big check that there is currently on the field. But even then, I think if you're Terra Fairy, you have to wonder if they're really going to commit to that button, because clicking Heavy Slam otherwise can be a little bit risky, but it is going to be a Terra on the side of Andrew. A hat we have seen on Fluttermane all too often. It is going to be a Terra Fairy on this Fluttermane, looking to do big damage, but it's a response Terra on the other side. AJ's Terra Orb floats over the Cresselia. It is going to be going into the Terra Fairy to make sure that it takes minimum damage from the Shadow Ball, but with that Terra Fairy on the other side, I'm not sure it's Shadow Ball that was locked in.
Probably not Shadow Ball locked in, no. Fake Out going into the Hearthflame Ogre Pond, preventing that from doing anything. This is just going to be a really big Moon Blast coming out here. Terra's not going to help you here, and that's just over half to Cresselia. That's how you know it's a really big hit. But Cress is able to get up the Trick Room. So maybe AJ got the better end of the deal here, but Cresselia took a lot of damage.
I think it's kind of... I wouldn't call it a misplay, but it's kind of a wasted Terra on both sides. Obviously you didn't need a Terra Fairy there because the Shadow Ball didn't come in, so ideally if you didn't Terra Fairy, you probably take the same amount of damage regardless, you get to keep your Terra for later. However, the Terra Fairy on Fluttermane, I think, was to go, I need this to knock out Cresselia. This has to be a one-hit KO, and it wasn't even close to a one-hit KO. It did a sizable amount of damage, but there was no chance that a roll was going to determine the outcome of that one. So it's a bit of a... It's a big commitment on both sides, and I don't think a huge benefit for either of them.
I think a bigger benefit for Andrew just because he can continue to utilize the Terra Fairy on the Fluttermane. But we'll talk about that in a minute as Torkoal comes in here, activating the Photosynthesis with Drought. So that's not, well, okay, Fluttermane's speed goes up, that's not going to make a difference, it's already the slowest thing here. And Heavy Slam is actually enough to pick up the Terra Fairy Cresselia. I was going to say earlier, Cresselia is actually a rather heavy Pokemon, so I'm not sure if Heavy Slam will be enough damage, but Iron Hand's proving that it's been putting on the pounds and it's able to take down the Cresselia with the Heavy Slam. Big Terra Fairy Moonblast, another one coming out here doing nearly 75% damage to Torkoal, who you would normally hope would take fairy hits a little bit better.
Yeah, not very effective is an absolute lie there. It is going to be the Ogerpon once again hitting the field here. Torkoal, the obvious choice for slowest thing on the field currently, and that Eruption is looking mighty tasty, but it does have access to other options here. It can go for an Earth Power on the Iron Hands. It can try to just maybe run down single target Flamethrower to kind of just focus one thing really hard. But typically, Torkoal's on the field, there is Trick Room up, you're probably going to click Eruption. It's actually the Heat Wave.
Torkoal's so low at this point, Eruption's not going to be a big burn on Iron Hands with the Heat Wave. That's a big deal. That means Iron Hands damage output goes down a lot. Drain Punch is not enough to pick up Torkoal. That's huge. Torkoal sticking around here is a big deal, and it also means that Hearthflame was untargeted this turn, is able to fire off an Ivy Cudgel in the sun. Goodbye, Fluttermane.
That is a perfectly played turn. I had forgotten that Eruption is kind of like other moves where they are based on their HP, so I understand not going for it there. Heat Wave, however, burning the Iron Hands is absolutely pivotal for this match. It does allow the Torkoal to survive. It's unlikely that there's anything that's going to be slower on the other side as well. There is the option to put in Heatran. You can obviously stop them from using the same fire moves that we were just using, but Ogerpon is unterra'd, so Mold Breaker breaks through, and Earth Power is an option.
Yeah, the beginning of last turn, I was going to say, oh, AJ looks like she's on the back foot here. Torkoal's taken a bunch of damage. Things are not looking great. But with the Heat Wave burn, Torkoal surviving the follow-up Drain Punch, and then Hearthflame Ogerpon being able to KO the Fluttermane, I would say the opposite at this point. AJ definitely feels like she's in command of this game, especially because Urshifu comes in here, and I would kind of assume, well, it could go either way, but I would kind of assume that Ogerpon Hearthflame would outspeed the Urshifu, be trained to be rather slow.
I am expecting this Ogerpon to be moving first still, but it's actually going to be the Torkoal taking a little bit of a leave. It doesn't want to get tagged by that Sucker Punch. As the Ursaluna does hit the field here, Sucker Punch did go into the Torkoal slot, but unfortunately will not find a target as Drain Punch goes into the Ogerpon. Despite the burn, the critical hit breaks through and does a decent little chunk of damage there, as it is going to be this Ogerpon with the final move here. Ivy Cudgel going into that Urshifu does a heavy chunk of damage, breaking the Focus Sash, bringing it to low HP. That is one incorrect move away from finding the end of its match.
Yeah, this game is now getting very close to the end, I would say. I'm surprised that Urshifu was able to tank the fire-type Ivy Cudgel in the sun, even from unboosted Ogerpon. That is
Yeah, it didn't even
a lot of
It
damage.
didn't even bring it to Sash.
Yeah, that's...
It didn't have to use it. It kind of just survived with like around 10%. But now you have to worry about a facade boost or guts boosted earthquake, which is never good when A, you have 10% HP, or B, you are weak to ground.
Yeah, Urshifu gonna detect and say, no thanks, actually don't want to deal with that. Ogerpon also going to, well, not protect, throw out the spiky shield here, doesn't want to eat another Drain Punch, and the Earthquake comes out from the Ursaluna, and it's hard to see Iron Hand surviving this turn.
It is going to just target down the Iron Hands as everything else had protected itself. The damage is going to be huge, easily knocking out that Iron Hands as it will fell in this turn. It's just going to be the Urshifu, and I believe there is one in the back here still, as the Twisted Dimensions do reset, and it's the Ogerpon, which is maybe the best thing you could have had waiting in the back there.
Ogerpon may be what Andrew needs here. Now that Trick Room is over, Urshifu should feel a little safer to start putting out some damage, but it still has to be careful. Because we've seen Sucker Punch and Detect, have we actually seen whether Urshifu is faster than AJ's Ogerpon at this point?
We have not. Yeah, it went for the Sucker Punch the first turn in Trick Room, which kind of let Ogerpon just have that free turn. So we actually don't know where the speed tiers are lying right now. There is no more Trick Room, so I would assume that Ogerpon might have a slight edge, and it is actually going to be the first thing moving on the field. Urshifu will be falling as the Ogerpon is the faster of the two. I would assume that we are going to be seeing this Horn Leech coming out from the Ogerpon on the other side as a guts boosted facade into that Ogerpon is plenty enough for the one-hit knockout, and that is plenty enough for game one here in our finals.
Yeah, Guts boosted facade. That is a lot of damage for one target to take. And if you don't resist normal, you're probably not taking it unless your name is Cresselia. And Ogerpon is not named Cresselia.
Yeah, that was a interesting match to kind of just see how it broke down, because it really felt like the first few turns were so in Andrew's favor, and then it just slowly crept away before just that big sweeping turn where you get the knockout onto Flutter, bring out the Urshifu, and it's just like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah, I don't think we can... We've talked a lot about it already, but the Heat Wave burn on Iron Hands, that move could have missed entirely. The fact that it hit and burned Iron Hands was a really big deal because it meant Torkoal could stick around for another turn, right? So it could continue to output, or at least threaten, the Earth Power. Like, if you have Heatran in the back, it's not safe. If you leave Iron Hands there, it's not safe. I have Earth Power. I have Sun-boosted Heat Waves.
It really is the reason that Urshifu lost a turn, because it decided to go for the Sucker Punch to try and remove that Torkoal. If there was no burn and that Torkoal falls, then you have your Ursaluna hitting the field a turn earlier. You're not going to be getting your Guts boost off of there quite as quickly, at least. Urshifu can get a turn to maybe like sneak through any possible protects with Unseen Fist, so it's a really unsafe position to be in for that Urshifu for the Ursaluna rather, that it really never had to deal with.
No, it kind of got off scot-free in that regard, thanks to its buddy Torkoal just getting that clutch burn when it needed it. That was very important, very impactful. It meant that even if Iron Hands had the opportunity to fire off a Drain Punch into the Ursaluna, it would have done markedly less damage. When I saw Ursaluna switch in on the one turn, I thought, oh, if the Drain Punch goes into the Ursaluna here, that could make a big difference. It didn't, but the burn would have helped mitigate that, even if it did happen.
Yeah, it still probably wouldn't have been enough to... I don't think Ursaluna actually... No, it took a Horn Leech. Actually, it could have been very impactful if the Drain Punch did go in there. You maybe call that one. But unfortunately, that is just not the way it went. But we are going to have to see how Game 2 goes here as we get the leads. It's going to be the Heatran and the Urshifu on the side of Andrew, as we have the Cresselia and the Ursaluna. on the side of AJ. This is a clear commitment to, I want to click Trick Room and I want to click it now.
I think we might be seeing Trick Room coming up here pretty soon, but I mean, who can say, right? And I think Heatran coming out here does make a lot of sense given how Game 1 went. If Heatran was around, it could have dealt with Torkoal more effectively. It could have handled...
There was a lot of fire on the other side.
Yeah, there was a lot of
Flash
fire.
would really like to eat up for free. It is a little bit tricky because there is an Urshifu on the field, so you can't necessarily just protect with Ursaluna like you would normally like to get your Guts boosted ability out, but it's actually the Heatran going to take a quick skip out of town. The Intimidate on Landorus dropping down onto that Ursaluna doesn't really matter as much onto the Cresselia, but it is a Terra coming out on the side of AJ. This is going to go over this Cresselia, going Terra Fairy one more time. It does not want to take that Wicked Blow.
No, Terra Fairy is going to help mitigate that damage a lot, and I think the switch to Lando serves two separate purposes. We don't actually see the Wicked Blow, though. It's a close combat straight into the Ursaluna, sorry. Ursaluna can't actually protect, and Andrew just saying, you know what, actually, it's fine if Trick Room goes up, because if your sweeper is gone, I don't care.
What a fantastic call to know that, you know, they want Trick Room and they really want Trick Room, and they can't actually protect away from that close combat. There is Terra Fairy on that Ursaluna if they had decided to Terra the Ursaluna instead, but I understand why you would be a little bit hesitant to, because if you lose Trick Room, you lose everything. So that was a great call on just going for the Ursaluna, taking out the sweeper. Now, it does leave Torkoal in, and Torkoal gets the full benefit of Trick Room here, but that's one less big threat, especially with your Heatran in the back.
Yeah, that is a big prediction to make turn 1, and I would say it definitely paid off for Andrew there. The problem is you now have Scarf Landorus and Trick Room, which is not the best thing in the world. Cresselia going to retreat, doesn't want to risk staying on the field for that much longer, even though it was, I think, in a fine position defensively. At least Landorus also not wanting to stick around here. The Hearthflame Ogerpon coming onto the field, and Heatran coming out from Andrew's side to meet it.
It's going to be a Detect from this Urshifu, making sure that it stays nice and safe as an Eruption unloads from the Torkoal, unfortunately into the Protect of the Urshifu and the Flash Fire of the Heatran, so it is not a very effective move there, as we do have the two Fire types staring down this Heatran. It's not the worst possible position, but it definitely doesn't feel great.
No, I would say this is still a bit of a tight spot. I believe we saw the Ogerpon is faster than the Urshifu, so we know Ogerpon is going to move second here, and, well, Sucker Punch could go around that anyway, just to weaken a potential Eruption coming out from here, and because Ogerpon hasn't terastallized, Heatran does still have to worry about a Sun-boosted Ivy Cudgel coming its way, and it's going to do solid damage, but we're going to see a Terra from Andrew's side in response.
The Terra Orb floats over the Heatran as it is going to terastallize into that grass typing here. That is a little bit risky with Mold Breaker available on this Ogerpon, but it depends on where everything's slotted in, as Eruption is going to be going out once more. It does not affect the Heatran, but it is going to affect the Urshifu as it deals a massive amount of damage and brings it directly down to its Focus Sash, hanging on with just 1 HP. Heat Wave from the Heatran is going to be doing a ton of damage and actually picks up the KO. Flash Fire dealing dividends.
That is actually a huge deal, because we did actually see AJ lock in the Ivy Cudgel into the Heatran, and if that was allowed to go off, that would have definitely one-shot Heatran in the sun, thanks to the Sun Boost and the Terastallization to the Grass type. The Grass type Terra not actually doing that much for Andrew here, but it does make Heatran look shiny and green.
It looks pretty.
Yeah, now it's a 3v1 with Terra Fairy, or 4v1?
It is a 4v1 still. Landorus retreated back as well, so there hadn't been any knockouts in that game specifically. We did see the lock-in on the side of AJ there, so we are going to be going to a Game 3 shortly here, as it is a beautiful response and adaptation on the side of Andrew here to force Game 3.
Yeah, very, very strong, very swift response too, I would say. The I thought game 1 was quick, and then game 2 happened. Game 1 was slow.
Game 1,
game 2 was very fast.
yeah, there was no hesitation in knowing exactly what needed to be done to make sure that Andrew forced that game 3. It was an absolutely just masterclass of how to play around that Trick Room comp, calling the Urshifu on turn 1, getting Heatran in to make sure that there's no shenanigans going on with eruptions. Landorus did have the ability to intimidate, but I think it only intimidated the Ursaluna, which definitely did not matter.
It might have if it had gone Terra Fairy.
If it had gone Terra
but Andrew
Fairy,
had
it
called that
might.
correctly.
But regardless, it was an adaptation from one side. Now it's time for the adaptation on the other. There is certainly no reason that this game cannot go either way. It's just going to come down to who can call what correctly.
Yeah, I think we've seen that both players are very capable of taking a win off of the other one. So it really depends on... Maybe it's premature to say, but I would say turn 1 is going to matter a lot.
Turn 1 has mattered a ton in both games already.
Who can force a Terra? Who can read the Terra being burned? Who can conserve that and play around that? It's going to end up mattering, I think, quite a bit. And whoever gets turn 1 right, I think, is going to have a substantial lead.
Yeah, it is all going to come down to that. It's all going to come down to whether or not the hard Trick Room is the play again. Do you leave Ursaluna hanging? Do you even lead it at all, knowing that this Urshifu did just absolutely bonkers damage beforehand? But there is no time like the present to figure out the answer to those questions as we get ready to hop into Game 3 here in our finals here in Hayward. Both trainers are locked in and ready to go. We have got the Urshifu Ogerpon on Andrew's side, followed by the Iron Hands Ogerpon on AJ's side. So a completely new look for both sides.
This is a very different lead for both trainers. I'm a little surprised to see the Water Ogerpon in the lead, considering that there's Sun on the side of AJ, considering that something like Cresselia is going to sort of shrug off any hits from Water Ogerpon. Water Ogerpon tend to be built more defensively and more for support, so I'm a little surprised to see that on lead, but I think it does actually help Andrew here because it means that the Hearthflame Ogerpon on AJ's side is a little bit pressured between both it and the Urshifu.
Yeah, there's I feel like there really is just a million ways that this can go, whether there's a fake out, a switch, whatever it may be. It's going to be a spiky shield from the Ogerpon on Andrew's side. I presume we're going to be seeing a detect as well. Just the safe play, double protect, make sure that you don't get faked out, you don't take any unnecessary damage. It was a fake out Ivy Cudgel that was going to be going the way of that Urshifu, none of which will matter now. Pretty standard.
Yeah, that would have been... I think that's a safe play from both players. The Wellspring Ogerpon on Andrew's side of the field, not threatening too much damage. And if Urshifu does get cheeky and decide, hey, I'm not going to protect, I'm going to get a Wicked Blow off, Fake Out plus Ivy Cudgel. Actually, we saw even with the Sun, Ivy Cudgel was not enough to activate Focus Sash, so Urshifu probably would have hung on, but now you have the Focus Sash intact, and you're generally feeling a lot safer if you're Andrew, leaving the Urshifu in for another turn.
Yeah, it's definitely a very conservative play, as the Ogerpon is going to be taking a rest on Andrew's side. Landorus will be hitting the field, dropping an Intimidate onto both of these physical attackers, making their attacks just a little bit weaker, as it is going to be Iron Hands deciding to take leave from the field as well, switching in the Torkoal, getting that Sun up, boosting the damage coming from this Ogerpon, as it is Terastallization time.
We do see a Terra coming out turn 2. It's actually the Urshifu on the other side, Terastallizing to the Dark type, looking to unload about, let's see, as much damage as it possibly can. Torkoal might not be happy to have switched in here, but we do see Sun-boosted Ivy Cudgel going into the Urshifu, doing honestly not that impressive damage. The Terra Dark Wicked Blow, on the other hand, going to do a lot, and with that critical hit, Ogerpon is out of here.
Yeah, that was not as much damage as I may have expected that Ivy Cudgel to do, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. when you have Focus Sash. You could do as much damage as you want. It was never going to get the knockout there. Ogerpon was always going to fall. It's kind of an unfortunate situation to be in, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is still this Cresselia. There's the ability to just roll Trick Room down, very safely try and navigate those 4 turns where the speed is in your favor. It's definitely far from over.
That is true. Cresselia can go Terra Fairy and decide, I don't feel like taking super effective damage from Dark Urshifu today. You can Terra all you want. However, I was going to say Torkoal is choice specs. It cannot click Protect. Not that it could in front of Urshifu anyway, because Urshifu doesn't care about the rules of this game. But Iron Hand's going to switch in here. Will take a Wicked Blow a lot better than Torkoal would. And we do see the Terastallization coming off into the Cresselia, so it'll take Wicked Blow a lot better, and it should be safe to set up Trick Room here.
Yeah, it is going to be that Terra Fairy that we have seen in all 3 games so far. It's going to be a Stomping Tantrum on the side of this Landorus going into the Iron Hands. It is a good call as it's super effective into that. It going just over half HP. Wicked Blow into the Cresselia is not going to do all too much. A good Terastallization there as it is going to set up Trick Room, twist the dimensions, and our speed tiers have flipped. The issue I see now is Torkoal is not on the field, and it does not really want to switch out and take a free hit in front of anything here.
No, it doesn't. The Stomping Tantrum, I think, was a really smart call. Just saying, hey, if Iron Hands does come in here to soak up a potential Wicked Blow, it's going to take a lot of damage. And now Iron Hands, let's say Urshifu, I was going to say it can detect in front of the Drain Punch, but Urshifu actually just going to switch out saying, no thanks, I don't want to take any damage right now. Ogerpon going to switch in instead. Landers, it's actually double switch from the side of Andrew. Ogerpon coming in, followed by we do see Heatran is the last Pokemon.
Heatran is not super surprising here, especially with the Torkoal in the back. It's going to do wonders if it were to be locked into a fire move. Thankfully, it's in the back, so it doesn't have to lock into that. As a little bit of chip damage comes down on either side, maybe a little more than just chip damage on the Ogerpon, but nothing too consequential at the moment, as Heatran is something that you're not mad about having on the field during turns of Trick Room, but it's still probably not going to move before this Iron Hands.
No, Iron Hand's very slow. Ogerpon opting to click Follow Me here to prevent Heatran from getting hit by something like the Drain Punch, but it's actually just the Wild Charge going into Ogerpon, doing a good amount of damage, but Ogerpon is able to hang on here. Lunar Blessing from the Cresselia to heal up the Iron Hands, as well as bringing Cresselia back almost up to full, not quite. And Heat Wave coming off in the sun, doing a good amount of damage. Getting the reverse burn. We saw Iron Hands get burned in game 2. Was that game 2?
That was game 2. No, game 1. That
1.
Iron Hands got burned, and it was a big factor as to why AJ was able to bring that game home as well. If it can happen to one person, it can happen to another person. That burn is unfortunate, but there's a Lunar Blessing, which is able to kind of just negate that burn. You can just say no.
Yeah, Andrew, why didn't you try having a Pokemon that says, actually, I don't feel like getting status today? And we do just see a double protect from the side of Andrew. Stall out another turn of Trick Room. Avoid any potential damage from Drain Punch. That does make sense, but it does give Cresselia a chance to freely click Lunar Blessing, heal up Iron Hands a bit more, and pivotally heal off its burn.
I don't know if that double protect was necessarily my favorite thing here. You kind of do have like this Iron Hand's a little bit on the ropes. You have the ability to really like remove it fairly quickly here with an Earth Power. It may take a few hits because Assault Vest is absolutely fantastic on Iron Hands, but the more time you give the Iron Hands to continue to heal up, the harder it's going to be to remove that huge, effectively the biggest threat that you could possibly think of right now. It is going to be the Drain Punch coming out of that Iron Hands. It's going to be doing massive damage to that Heatran, bringing it almost down to its last HP, as it is going to get a little bit of health back from the Drain Punch. Lunar Blessing likely to bring it back to full here, and it's like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, Iron Hands, Stomping Tantrum, what Stomping Tantrum? I didn't take that. I've only gotten hit by Earth Power this game, which does a decent chunk of damage, and Ivy Cudgel going to do a little bit more now that Sun is gone, so Iron Hands sort of ended the turn where it started at between 30 and 50% HP. Trick Room does expire. That is a big deal. And Sun is not... Things are actually looking a little dicey, I'd say, for AJ right now.
Yeah, that's not an ideal time for Trick Room to be running out there. You would really hope that maybe you get another, like, Drain Punch in, plus a Lunar Blessing can probably bring you back up to the range of taking a Ivy Cudgel pretty comfortably. Even taking an Earth Power pretty comfortably, but now without Trick Room, you're such an easy double-up target that everything just kind of feels bad. You do have the benefit of, we know Torkoal is in the back and it has the ability to set Sun, which means that this Ogerpon is going to be doing a lot less damage with those Ivy Cudgels. It does mean requiring this Torkoal to take that Ivy Cudgel, which feels very bad. In addition to boosting up the... Oh, it's the Horn Leech instead, though.
That's actually a big deal. Torkoal taking a lot less damage than it would have otherwise, even though the Sun would have reduced the damage, but the Earth Power to, well, I would say cover for it, but it also hits Iron Hands, right? So Torkoal goes down as soon as it enters the field. Does set up Sun, which does matter, but it's... I'm wondering if that's too little too late. It's worth noting at this point also that this Heatran does not have access to Flash Cannon, in case anyone was wondering why Cresselia was sitting in front of a Steel type safely for so many turns. This is Earth Power Heat Wave substitute Heatran.
I think you're fine with that. Honestly, you pretty much saved your Iron Hands. You got Iron Hands back in Trick Room, which is kind of your win condition here. There's no world in which this Torkoal comfortably really wants to sit in front of this this Heatran, but it is going to be the switch on the Ogerpon for the Landorus here. Landorus will be hitting the field and dropping its Intimidate down, making sure that Iron Hands deals just a little bit less damage, and there's no more switching to get rid of it. A Protect from the Heatran, make sure that it stays nice and safe, but it looks like it was the Drain Punch selected into that Landorus. Not very effective.
No, not going to do a lot of damage, but every bit of healing helps, I think, at this point. And we do see the Lunar Blessing from Cresselia come out. Once again, take a shot. Folks, Iron Hands heals up just a little bit. It's above half at this point, which means that it may survive a Stomping Tantrum from this Landorus, which does matter. But Landorus is also not super threatened right now.
How many times have we seen this Iron Hands health go green to orange to red to green?
If Iron Hands health bar was a playground equipment type, I would say it's a seesaw. It goes up and down thanks to Lunar Blessing as well as Drain Punch. Heavy Slam coming out, doing a decent chunk of damage to Landorus, but even if it's Terra Fairy, normally I don't say this, but Terra Fairy Moonblast, not quite enough in this instance because this is not Flutter Mane. Big special attack drop. Not really, sorry, just joking. Earth Power coming out. Iron Hands does hang on from that, so what does Landorus do? It is the Stomping Tantrum that is going to finish off Iron Hands, and it is going to be difficult for Cresselia to mount this comeback on its own.
I really like what AJ was going for there. You know that you pretty much have a free Drain Punch into this Heatran, and it would be really, really unwise to let that Heatran just kind of like take that Drain Punch, heal up Iron Hands a little bit more. You lost one of your Pokemon. So I think AJ was probably expecting a switch there. There was a Protect turn earlier, so it couldn't reliably protect again, so it probably switches out for something like maybe the Ogerpon. And it just didn't. It was just a great call by Andrew, just going, you know, I'm here, I can put my foot on the gas, and I can just take this game home, and that's exactly what they went for.
Yeah, the thing is, even if Heatran does stay in that turn, Iron Hands gets to heal up a little bit, sure, but then it still has to tank the Stomping Tantrum from Landorus, and we've seen how much damage that does. It's a lot of damage, and every turn Cresselia is clicking Moonblast, it's not clicking Lunar Blessing, meaning Iron Hands is not getting that passive healing that it kind of needs in order to stay in this game. We're going to see Crest try, though. Terra Fairy Moonblast doing... I think the bar moved. Big special attack drop, though. Like, that actually does matter. That plus the Heat Wave miss. Like, Cresselia is...
If
still
there's
around.
Will,
It's
there's
still,
a way.
yeah, it's still in this, but leftovers on Heatran is going to make this very difficult, barring a lot of critical hits.
I actually don't know if this is possible because of Leftovers. I think Leftovers heals the same amount as Moonblast. I guess you could crit. Every Heat Wave misses until Cresselia crits with Moonblast. Like 6 times. That's the out. It's actually a detect coming from this Urshifu, making sure that it does not take any damage from that Moonblast, and no damage is exactly what it is going to take. It is going to be this Heatran going for a substitute here. It does lower its health critically, but it is going to take ages for that substitute to be knocked out. That is rough.
Yeah, that may, if we weren't already in the graveyard, that might be the final nail in the coffin for this Cresselia here. It was going to be difficult to get rid of Heatran without a substitute. With a substitute, along with free leftovers recovery, it's going to be tough. The thing is, not a lot can hit Cresselia that hard either. Look at the Wicked Blow damage, it's not that impressive, and that was a crit.
Heat Wave is going to miss again. If there is a will, there is a way. We are not going down without an absolute fight, as Urshifu will fall here and bring either this Landorus or this Ogerpon back out. Props to this Cresselia. It refuses to go down without a fight.
No, when you're in finals, you gotta keep... If there is a sliver of a chance that you can win, there's no reason to give up early.
It is going to be the Landorus coming back out. Intimidate doesn't really matter that much this time, as the Cresselia is more focused on its special attack stat. I think these should be some pretty quickly locked in moves here. It is going to be the Rock Slide coming out of that Landorus. Heat Wave is going to connect this time and deal a little bit of damage, bringing it down to 77 HP, as the Moonblast comes out from this Cresselia and is going to knock out this Landorus. That is 2 KOs now for this Cresselia. 2 to go.
Yeah, Cresselia is trying its best, but I think Andrew has rightfully recognized Heatran can kind of win this on its own unless every single Heat Wave misses, in which case its only other attacking move is Earth Power, so we may be here for a while if Heat Wave never misses, but Ogerpon coming out here should promptly end this game with a cudgel.
No, Heat Wave can still miss here. It unfortunately does not. And this Cresselia will finally fall. Congratulations to Andrew for the huge win here at the MSS in Hayward. That was a set.
That was certainly a set. Game 1, very quick. Game 2, even faster. Game 3, let's just stop the car entirely and sit in the parking lot for a while and just think about how we got here.
Let's think about what we did and how we went wrong. Absolutely huge props to Andrew for that amazing win here in Hayward. That is going to be all the time we have for this one. We will see you guys next time. Thank you for joining us. Bye.